In the morning show, here on Arise News, I'm Ruben Abati.
I'm Ayo Mayo Essing.
And I'm Rafai Husseini. We've got a great show lined up for you for the next 3 hours. So sit back, relax, and let's kickstart your day, because the morning show begins right now.
Ensuring the safety of lives and property is one of the top priorities the Nigerian police force is meant to uphold. But when one of its officers gets reckless while on duty, it can be costly. On Christmas Day, a trigger-happy policeman attached to the Ajah police station took the life of Bolanle Rahim, a Lagos-based lawyer who was on her way back from church with her family. Her death has generated reactions from the Nigerian President Muhammadu Buhari, who said he was deeply shocked and saddened to learn of the brutal killing and directed the police authorities to take the strongest possible action against the culprits already in detention. The Lagos State Governor, Babajide Sanwo-Olu, on the other hand, has promised speedy justice in prosecuting the police officer responsible for her death. Joining us later on this show this morning to discuss how this case should be taken up and what needs to be done to avoid another occurrence in the future is Nelson Ekujume, Executive Director, Center for Rights and Grassroots Initiative, and Adeyinka Olumide Fushika, a Senior Advocate of Nigeria.
Moving things along, we shall be bringing you a special report on politics in Nigeria as we wrap up the year 2022. We'll also catch up on news-making headlines across the globe. Michael Wilson will give us updates on global business outlook.
While Rod Sudiri will update us on Africa business activities across the continent, we'll also review today's newspaper with Arise News analyst Emmanuel Afeni, and while Ojiokwe will fill us in on what's trending around the world. It's going to be all that and a whole lot more today on The Morning Show. Welcome back to The Morning Show right here on the Rise News channel. It's now time to take a look at news stories making headlines around the globe. The National Assembly has passed the 2023 budget with an upward review of 20.5 trillion naira, presented by President Muhammadu Buhari to 21.8 trillion naira, an increase of 1.3 trillion naira. Both the Senate and the House of Representatives passed the appropriation bill in addition to a 2022 supplementary budget. Arise correspondent Tunji Olanipekun compiled in this report.
The oil benchmark was increased from $70 to $75 per barrel to reflect the current values in the international market. Nigeria's daily oil production was pegged at 1.69 million barrels per day, while the exchange rate is put at 435 naira to the dollar. In the budget, about 967 billion naira is for statutory transfers, 6.5 trillion for debt service, more than 8 trillion for recurrent expenditure, while about 6 trillion naira is for contribution to the development fund for capital expenditure.
It is important to state that the committee worked harmoniously with the executive arm of government and its counterpart in the House of Representatives in the processing of this bill, which ensured the collaboration of the National Assembly and the executive arm of government in the discovery and utilization of additional revenue projections to fund or improve the funding of some critical projects.
Total capital expenditure 5,972,734,929,421 naira only. Those who are at distance part of the bill say aye. Those against say nay, the ayes have. Aggregate expenditure 21,827,188,747,391 naira only. Those who are at distance part of the bill say aye. Those against say nay, the ayes have it.
The presiding officers commended lawmakers for maintaining the budget cycle of January to December, noting that the 2023 budget is the fourth and final budget to be passed by the 9th National Assembly.
The committee observe the following. The effects of the 2022 flood across the country and its attendant consequences on the roads, bridges, farmlands, and water sector necessitated the supplementary appropriation bill. MDS involved in the supplementary appropriation bill's requests are Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development, Federal Ministry of Works and Housing, Federal Ministry of Water Resources.
There are about 11 laws which the bill seeks to amend, which consist of about 28 clauses. The proposals include amendment to the Capital Gains Tax, Company Income Tax, Custom, Excise and Tariff Act, Personal Income Tax, Petroleum Profit Tax, Stamp Duties Act, Value Added Tax, Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Act, Public Procurement Act, and Federal Inland Revenue Service Establishment Act, and Tertiary Education Tax Trust Fund Act.
Any action we are going to take to lay a foundation for government expenditure for 2023 should consider leveraging and then mitigating the hardship that Nigerians are facing, not to act in a way that will increase that hardship, Mr. Chairman. So, Mr. Chairman, this bill here seeks to make amendment, just like the DS has said, to certain provisions of very statutory legislations. Mr. Chairman, for example, clauses 19 through 26 is making very fundamental amendment to the Federal Inland Revenue Service Establishment Act. This is an act that stands the test of time, and we are using a piece of legislation that is going to last only for a year to make critical amendment to a piece of legislation that has been over time.
The National Assembly also passed a supplementary budget of 819 billion naira for the 2022 fiscal year and extended the implementation of the 2022 budget till March 31st, 2023. However, there was uproar in the Senate over requests from President Muhammadu Buhari for restructuring of a 22.7 trillion naira Ways and Means advances collected by the federal government from Central Bank of Nigeria over the last 10 years. The Ways and Means are advances from the central bank to the federal government for emergency funding of delayed receipt of fiscal deficit. However, senators rejected the request.
Mr. President, I don't want us to exercise any fear about what is contained in this. It's normal. We should even commend the government for bringing this information out. It's here. The Senate that is sitting on the 22nd December 2023.
The Senate then went into a closed session for about 1.5 hours and emerged with a resolution to step down restructuring of the 22.7 trillion naira Ways and Means advances.
Okay, I mean, a lot has to be said, Ayo.
Yes, a lot has to be said. Well, shall we say kudos to the National Assembly for the 9th National Assembly. This is the last budget, an appropriation bill that will be passing before we transition to the next. And just to mention that consecutively, they have been able to maintain the January to December passage. And that aside, let's now go into some of the concerns raised with regards to the budget. Some developments around the deficit, the budget deficit, which compared to last year is over 10 trillion naira, and which has been said by the Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning to be funded largely by borrowing. The President has themed this the budget of fiscal sustainability and transition in recognition of the current state of the economy and, of course, transitioning to the next government come May 2023. And the budget is meant to be an ease for the next government in power. However, what analysts have said is that rather than it being an easy transition, it would actually be a burden, a debt burden for the next elected government. Why is this so? Now, what what the an analyst, the LCCI, that's the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry DG, Dr. Chinyere Almona, had said, and let me quote what she said: the implications of the massive borrowing by the government to the economy are enormous. We've talked about the impact of borrowing again and again on this, including, and some of these implications include crowding out credit to the private sector, increasing the cost of debt servicing, and making the economy more vulnerable to unforeseeable shocks in an election year. The budget has been pegged of crude oil prices $75 per barrel, currently $79 per barrel. So this has been raised from the initial 70 based on the current realities and the upward of crude oil prices across the world. Now, crude oil production has also been pegged at 1.69 million barrels per day. Currently, Nigeria is doing 1.2. This year saw one of the lowest production of crude oil based on a number of factors, chief of which was oil theft, which the NNPCL had assured Nigerians again and again that they had been making concerted efforts to ensure that this wouldn't, they would curb the menace of oil theft. So they're being optimistic with regards to the barrels per day that will be produced, and obviously its impact on revenue. Again, optimism on that, right? They've also said pegged exchange rate at 435 to a dollar. Currently, we're doing 446 to a dollar in the exchange rate. GDP growth rate at 3.75%, inflation rate at 17.16%. Currently, we are at 21%. Just to mention a few positives with regards to the budget that's been passed. It's been said to be a budget of fiscal sustainability, and when you're talking about this, you must look at key infrastructure, including education, health, and for the first time, Nigeria has passed the 1 trillion mark with regards to its allocation to education. The UNICEF recommended allocation percentage of the budget is 26%. We're still doing a lot lower than that at 6%, whilst a peer review with the second biggest economy in Africa, South Africa, is over 20%. Therefore, despite the increase, which has been significant based on previous budgets, it still falls below the recommended. Same with health. Health also passing the $1 trillion mark, however, still way below the recommended WHO allocation. Again, to wrap up in this segment is that, for my thoughts, my view is that despite the aggregate increase of the budget, however, the inflation rate makes it clear that we are poorer than the last budget of 2022. It still begs to question as to how this budget will be funded, bearing in mind that with the extension to the fulfillment of the 2022 budget to March, we haven't been able to, in terms of expenditure and based on revenue. You would wonder how we hope to fund this budget, which unfortunately doesn't seem realistic.
Dr. Bati?
Okay, the Buhari administration has consistently met the budget cycle. The budget cycle is January 1 to December. So they've done it again this time. But one issue that came up before the National Assembly was a request by the president that there should be an extension of 90 days for aspects of that 2022 budget that had not yet been implemented to be extended. And indeed, the law provides for that. So the Senate has granted 90 days to cover those capital projects that were not covered within the budget cycle because of the late release of funds. So that was the explanation that was given with that regard, and that didn't generate any much controversy. However, if you look at the details of the budget, as has been the case over the years, debt service is over 6 trillion. Recurrent expenditure is over 8 trillion. That's non-debt domestic expenditure. Capital project is 5.9 trillion. In other words, when you look at all of this in terms of percentages, there isn't much for capital expenditure. And what was said is that whatever deficit that may be recorded in the 2023 budget will be funded via ways and means. And a provision of 4.49 trillion is made for ways and means funding. Now, what is ways and means? Big issue. I'll come to it later. Now, if you look at the benchmarks are not realistic. Inflation is pegged at about 17.6%. Already, December 2022, we're doing 21.47% inflation rate. There's no guarantee that by the time December figures come out, it will not even be higher than that. Some people even say the rate of inflation in the country is much higher than that. Oil production is pegged at 1.69 million barrels per day, including condensates. We've not been able to meet that target, but there has been an improvement, according to the upstream regulatory agency, and the fact that Shell has returned to the Forcados terminal, and they are hoping that with increased activity in checking crude oil theft, that there will be better improvement in that regard. The exchange rate is pegged at 435 naira. Well, is that even realistic? 435 naira to the dollar in a regime where we don't have a unified single exchange rate. Yes, GDP growth is projected at 3.75%. I thought about 2 months ago, even the World Bank had reviewed that downwards, whereas our expectation is that Nigeria, in the worst of times, should be able to do double-digit, growth rate, but we're even talking about 3.75. So in terms of the benchmarks, this is also a problematic budget. I don't see how it will amount to fiscal sustainability. Only 2 weeks ago, the World Bank was saying one of the things Nigeria needs to address is fiscal prudence, fiscal discipline, business unusual choices. So if you look at this budget that is being put on the table, there's nothing like business unusual there. It's the same old story. And to go to Ways and Means. Ways and Means, when expected receipts do not come to finance deficits, federal government goes to the CBN to print money. It just means print money. And in the last, as of this December, the Ways and Means, the figure is over 22 trillion. And that is higher than the budget estimate for the whole of 2022, which was a little over 17 trillion. So we borrowed more Ways and Means to fund the 2022 budget. However, where the problem lies, which caused the row in the National Assembly, is that government cannot explain what it has done with the Ways and Means of 22.7 trillion. The CBN was just printing money. They even talk about securitizing it. Whereas what the Act says, the CBN Act says, is that you cannot print money unless you have retired what you borrowed before. Yes. So they have not retired it. Nobody even knows what the money was spent upon. So that is the bone of contention. And the lawmakers, they were quite right in saying, no, this has to be suspended. And they've set up a committee, an ad hoc committee, that will report back to plenary on January 17 to explain what Nigeria did with 22.7 trillion. Senator Sekibo brought up a very valid point, quoting Section 80 of the Constitution, Section 81 of the Constitution, and also Section 38 of the CBN Act. Okay? That, look, any money at all that comes into the coffers, into the Consolidated Revenue Fund, right, must go in there. It's not money. You can't just print money and just spend it, and nobody knows what the money was spent for. If we're not careful, the same pattern will continue in the year 2023. So the lawmakers, they are in order in that particular regard, because Nigerians would like to know. The other issue that came up there was that the National Assembly passed the finance bill, the 2022 finance bill, which has been on the table since. There are controversial aspects of that finance bill, either the telecom tax or some other, taxes, even stamp duty and all of that, on which many Nigerians would also like to have information. In other words, you cannot run the economy, in a manner that is not transparent, with a lot of opaqueness, and, well, we'll see how it goes, whether the Senate, the National Assembly, will have the courage to see this to the logical end, because you see that the Senate is already divided, with some lawmakers standing up and saying, oh, what the federal government has done. Well, the person saying that was probably speaking from a position of ignorance. If you are a senator, it doesn't mean you have any clue about the appropriation process.
Well. It's official. We've run the country aground. We've put the economy on its knees and we've shattered it. This budget will not make any difference. I just hope I have the time to analyze. Please. At first, you have a budget where your recurrent expenditure is more than your capital expenditure. Then you are joking. Till date, because we've not been able to implement provisions of the Orosoye report, our recurrent expenditure is still high. And it has been like that for a while. Madam Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, I tried reducing it a bit, but you can see there 8.3 trillion. And your capital expenditure is 5.9 trillion. Your debt service, 6.5 trillion. Also, are you going to add subsidy to that money? What we should even look at is your profit or your revenue projections for the year. The revenue projections for the year is a little over 9 trillion. And you have a budget now that you've increased to 21 trillion. Obviously, you know your budget performance will be below par. Because I don't see where we're going to get all the money. Even if worst case scenario, ways and means, the CBN prints another 4 trillion. I hope you know the consequence of printing that money. Inflation will increase. So when you put a benchmark of 17% inflation and you want to go and print 4 trillion, you're deceiving yourself. There's inflation again this year. And it can only increase because it is the ways and means over the years that put us here. And now, the federal government want to be the custodian of breaking the law. How do we even do this in this country? A CBN Act that you saw, you are trying to use the National Assembly to break law with you. And some senators stood up and said, we should thank the federal government for coming to show us that they want to break the law. We've become a joke in this country. You see, I always say it, my maths teacher, Mrs. Brahimo, we say common sense is not common. A senator of the Federal Republic is thanking the federal government for bringing a proposition to breaking the law. At first, the federal government broke the law with the ways and means. You are not supposed to take in excess of 5% of the preceding year's revenue. We have taken more than that. We will take more. And some senator is saying we should applaud the federal government for breaking the law. And the laws are stated there. It's even in the Constitution, Section 80, 81.
And 83.
And 83. Then it's even in the CBN Act.
Section
so
58.
A senator is excited to come on the House and thank the federal government for breaching the Constitution. Then as we go further, what do we expect? It's going to be more hardship for the people in 2023. 2 suggestions. In all of this, we will still have contracts that will not be done because multiple contracts will be added. Contract variation scam will still happen. There will not be integrity. We've not been able to ascertain the cost-benefit analysis of the budget. We don't have an ombudsman office that checks the budget in its entirety. Because of the want of time, I would stop here. But here goes your 2023 budget. That's all on News Line. We take a short break now. When we return, we'll have Michael Wilson and Ruth Sodiri to give updates on global and African business activities. Stay with us.
I've been running my business on my own, trying my best to get it to the next level, but I really need some help to get ahead. I know just what to do, I'll vote it for my loans, overdraft, step by step to my dream business, we vote. Salary earners, entrepreneurs, get your loans with no collateral. Quick sign up, 0 paperwork, step by step to your dream business, we vote.
is available to individuals, SMEs, and corporate customers. Download Vault by Polaris Bank from the Google Play Store or Apple App Store to get started today.
Feliz Navidad. Feliz Navidad. Feliz Navidad. Amazing. I wanna wish you a Merry Christmas. I wanna wish you a Merry Christmas. I wanna wish you a Merry Christmas.
Glow wishes you a Merry Christmas.
Periwinkle Empire, a collection of high-end homes and condos, strategically located in the very stunning and timeless landscape of Lekki Phase 1 and Victoria Island. Each development is deliberately crafted for ultimate comfort, with features and facilities to provide a lifetime of limitless convenience. A perfect choice for both investors and home buyers, these luxury towers merges comfort with your lifestyle. The ultimate live, work, and play.
Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. For Global Business Update, Michael Wilson joins us now from Cape Town, South Africa. Good morning, Michael.
Good morning. As far as Asia Pacific is concerned, a bit of a down morning for them, for their stocks, a bit of a down trading session after Wall Street dropped quite considerably last night. China down about 0.5%, and Hong Kong down about 1.5%. Now, as far as China's economy opening up is concerned, it turns out that only 8% of Chinese shoppers feel safe about leaving their apartments. The vast majority are still staying at home. Fever clinic attendance has skyrocketed as well. Whether that means, it's very difficult to tell exactly what's going on. I've seen figures of 240 million people in China still suffering from COVID, or at least getting COVID again. Whether it actually is COVID or a new strain, I'm not quite sure about that. The other side of China is that they've relaxed their regulations on 45 foreign video games, and thus the likes of South Korea manufacturers like Netmarble, NCSoft, Krafton, and Kakos Games have increased overnight because China appears to be relaxing the import regulations on games, and video games are a huge industry as far as China is concerned. It's a huge market for video games as well. Let's turn our attention to the United States, and there was a considerable drop in the Dow yesterday, a broad sell-off really, all the usual kind of problems. The investors are dumping growth stocks because they feel as though a recession is coming. Meantime, the US government has imposed anybody coming from China, Hong Kong, Macau, it doesn't matter what nationality they are, just those those exiting points from the Far East into the United States, they have to show negative COVID tests, or else they won't be allowed in. This, again, regardless of their nationality, the United States is trying to guard itself against that. Elon Musk has been saying, don't be bothered by market craziness. Well, he shouldn't be too bothered by it, should he? If he's actually worried, then he ought to be extremely worried about Tesla, which has joined 68% share price down since a year ago, 42% down in December. He is also saying that the business the business is going to be absolutely fine, and in long term, it will be the most valuable company on earth. So Elon Musk actually trying to talk against the year-long sell-off that's happened in Tesla shares, and of course a lot of that himself actually selling to buy Twitter. The FTX saga continues. The disentangling of that gets more and more complicated. One of the problems is that the company invested in two venture deals. Those are the ones that actually caught the SEC's attention. A company called Dave and another called Miston Labs. And there's $200 million actually invested in those companies. So that'll be more for bankruptcy lawyers to unravel as Mr. Bankman-Fried awaits his trial. Global economy, a decade of low growth. That's what economists are saying right now. The IMF has cut its forecast, as you know, from 6.6% next year to 2.7%. How economists actually feel as though they can take a 10-year view baffles me, I have to say. But anyway, I'm giving you this as it is news, and it does affect the way that people actually look at investments, and they think a sluggish decade of growth. That's what the economists are thinking. Again, my question is, how on earth would they know 10 years ahead? Now, this is quite major as far as the EU is concerned. ExxonMobil is suing Brussels to try to block the new windfall tax. Now, it may well be that a number of other companies will follow suit. What it's alleging is that the EC exceeded its legal authority. This is the most significant response yet, and it threatens a levy to 25 the levy, which is worth about 25 billion euros, and was intended to cut people's exposure to energy costs and so on. It certainly threatens that EU-wide levy. And the EU corruption case, you know, the one, again, all these allegations unproved at the moment, but they're including Morocco and Qatar, as you know. It's called Unique. That's the Belgian Justice Minister, Vincent van Quickenborne, who's saying that this is absolutely widespread, and the EU will not bear easily people trying to attack the heart of what it described as its European democracy. But I have to say, whilst this continues and whilst there are plenty of stories about this, the facts still have to be proved, but it is shaking the heart of the Brussels establishment. And finally, oil. Just to give you an idea, Urals crude is selling at $50 a barrel. As you know, there's a cap of $60 a barrel as far as G7 is concerned. There's plenty of insurance apparently available on ships, tankers traveling to India and China from Russia with their oil on board. The Western insurers have been underwriting those risks quite happily, apparently, but the price will remain volatile, and China's recovery is still key to the oil price. That's the global view this morning.
Number one is, so how do these investors get their money back in the Sam Bankman-Fried case? Because it looks as though we've not learned. And I can go way back to the times of Charles Ponzi, Bernie Madoff. The list is endless. What are the caps? You know, at least they were lucky in the case of Elizabeth Holmes, but investors still lost money and had to run us. What are the caps we can put in place? And also concerning the ExxonMobil case suing as regards windfall taxes, even in the UK, some oil companies too are going to be suing the UK government as regards windfall taxes. Can you explain the interplay going on there?
Yeah, certainly. As far as the windfall tax is concerned, I mean, this is something which is reckoned to be quite major. This is the largest challenge to the EU actually doing that at the moment. As far as legal action in the United Kingdom is concerned, so far all the oil companies, as I understand it, have done is to voice their disapproval and have said the normal kind of things is, you know, we pay a windfall tax already. If we pay another one, then it affects our investment. But so far, no joined together thing about this. I suspect, though, this Exxon challenge to Brussels will probably light the fires under lawyers as they return to work after the Christmas holidays. And certainly, I would expect more legal challenges to follow. What Exxon is saying quite specifically, they're saying to you is that they've exceeded their legal mandate as far as that's concerned.
All right, now going to the bleak global outlook, just looking at the impact of China opening up its economy post-COVID, 3 years since its very stiff COVID restrictions. I'd like you to just talk about the impact of that vis-a-vis some countries' response to this opening. The US is considering some restrictions, COVID restrictions, based on these on China reopening, and also the fact that they've seen increase in number of infections. Hospitals talked about morgues and cemeteries recording higher numbers. What would be the impact of this on the global economy?
Well, as you know, the jury's still out as to where COVID actually entered the general population, and it may well be China. What the United States, I can't speak for the United States, but what I'm assuming with their additional controls is they're seeing this increase in infections, which China has not actually commented on. But the fact of the matter is that a lot of hospitals are saying that they are full of fever-related diseases, and people assume that's COVID. So this is the United States trying to protect itself. I feel as though what 2023 will begin to show, it'll be a sort of end of the first part of globalization. I think countries will look inwards towards themselves because they do not want to enter the kind of mass lockdown that is so obviously crimped China's economy. They don't want to be going through that at the moment. So I suspect that borders will be hastily erected between countries to try to stop the spread of COVID. That's what I'd be doing if I were a country with limited amount of COVID. But at the same time, I think politicians really now have to very carefully balance the health of the economy versus the possible risk of infection. And again, it's only a possible risk that we're seeing right now.
Okay, let's start with that survey of Chinese shoppers who have been very cautious. 62% of them even saying they would rather save rather than spend. But that survey was conducted before China decided to open up fully and step back from its zero COVID policy. And that survey was also restricted to urban centers, a sample size of 4,200 persons in major cities across China. Is there any possibility that now that there is full reopening and there is renewed interest in travel, that maybe we'll see more footfalls in those shops where even the owners of those shops are complaining about labor shortage? Would there be an improvement? And then, of course, Elon Musk. Tesla stocks have gone down up to about 44% in December alone. Cumulatively, in 2022, up to about 70%. In terms of market cap, the company lost about $715 billion. And Elon Musk also lost his position. But in the email that he sent to everybody, titled Final Few Days, he's saying he's very optimistic that Tesla will end up to be the most profitable business. He says, whatever may have happened is because of interest rate. But critics are insisting that is because he's distracted and it's because of the chaos that he has created in Twitter that is affecting Tesla. Who is right here, Elon Musk or his critics? And then finally, a gentleman called Charlie Munger. Charlie Munger, friend of Warren Buffett, 98 years old. He says, all of us are just complaining too much, that we are 5 times better than we could ever expect to be. That he is a child of the Great Depression in the 1930s, and that things were so difficult then, but that now we're just complaining unnecessarily because of what he calls the envy of the other. And he blames Facebook, he blames Instagram, he blames Twitter, that too many people are comparing their lives with that of other people. And that's why everybody is moaning and complaining that, in fact, during the Great Depression, it was worse. And we should be more optimistic. Mr. Wilson.
Well, optimism's fine, okay? And if you want to be optimistic, completely up to you. As far as Musk is concerned, I feel as though I wouldn't be taking investment advice from him. I mean, the stocks speak for them. Whatever you think about the stock market, however good or bad or indifferent you feel about it now, whether you feel investors are doing the right kind of thing or not, for something to lose 68% year on year says to me that investors, and that's all that you're in, that's all that you don't have any control over the way Tesla produces its cars. You may not even want a car. You are an investor. And if you're seeing something which is down 68% year on year, then that's telling you something. Now, should you wish to stick with it, then you would stick with it. And will it become the most valuable company on earth in the long term? Might do, I don't know. What is the long term? So I feel as though Musk is answering a few little inward-looking questions about Tesla. What he's not answering is what investors are really worried about, which is where his attention actually is. Is it with Tesla? Is it with Twitter? Is it with SpaceX? And how can you run those three kind of companies? And what is the future for Twitter? Will he be required to sell more shares? He said he wasn't going to sell shares in Tesla, and then he did. So, I mean, that's not the kind of investment model that I personally would follow. And I suspect you will probably, and I don't wish to offer investment advice because it isn't my job, but common sense just says to me that if you have somebody behaving like this at the head of a company, is that the company that you're going to get a smooth ride with? No, it's not. Are you going to get a volatile ride? Yes, you are. Will it become the most valuable company in the world in the long term? Possibly. Who knows? I just really don't know, and I'm sure nor does anybody else. I think you've got to be quite careful about companies like this. This may be the future. Maybe these disruptors like Tesla and so on are where it's at right now. I suspect though, with volatile CEOs like Musk around, it probably will make for a very, very wild ride. China, I suspect what you're seeing there, growing pains after this world shutdown. I'm sure your timetable is absolutely correct, but what it doesn't answer is whether they will actually go back to the shops, and will we be told the true figures from China in the long run? Again, I'm afraid that's a who knows question.
Well, thank you very much, Michael. Thank you very much indeed. Now for business updates across the African continent, Rotus Udiri joins us. Good morning, Rotus.
Good morning, Doctor. Good morning, Ayo. Good morning, Rufai. Good morning to all our viewers. We follow up with yesterday's poll on the This Day website with respect to state police, because we're interactive like that. And I think it's pretty overwhelming as far as the respondents to that poll. I think it's about 81% of respondents say that they want. Do we have the poll? 81% of respondents say that they are in favor of state police. So of course that takes us into that conversation on augmenting the budgets of the different states and whether or not they have the capacity to be able to pay police as far as their salaries are concerned. So that now takes us into the Minister of Labour and Employment, Chris Ngige, who yesterday was speaking to newsmen, said that the government is looking at increasing the salaries of civil servants in 2023. They said there's a pronouncement that is going to be made as far as that is concerned. And it says that the relevant commissions are looking at increasing salaries. He was asked if those salaries would be increased in line with where inflation is. And he said, okay, so now we're back to the poll. All right, so there's the poll. 81% of course in favor of state police, 13% no, 6% not sure. And again, www.thisdaylive.com you can go there and get because your opinion matters, right? All right, so back to Chris Ngige, saying that the federal government is going to look at increasing salaries for civil servants. The timeline, of course, has to be put in place here. Just yesterday, remember Michael Wilson took us through Spain approving monies for assisting the polity there, the UK, a number of other countries. So Nigeria, 3 years after the pandemic of 2020, will now just be looking at increasing, possibly increasing salaries of civil servants in line with economic realities like inflation, which, take your pick. Is it 21%? Is it 50? Is it 74? Is it 85? But let's look at the highlights of Nigeria's Ministry of Labour and Employment. On the left, you've got Chris Ngige, who is the minister. On the right, you've got Festus Keyamo, who is the literal interpretation of politics interrupting governance. He's the Minister of State. You've got no recent unemployment data. You've got unemployment at 33%. You've got youth unemployment at 42.5%. If you include underemployment, 6 out of every 10 youth in Nigeria either have no jobs or are working in jobs that they're overqualified for. You've got the ASU strike, which Chris Ngige says is still before a court for interpretation and so on and so forth. And then you've got the exodus of medical professionals, which 2-3 years ago, Chris Ngige said was actually a good thing because we're going to get remittances from those doctors that leave. So this is where, and if you notice, if you go to Festus Keyamo's Twitter page, because of his new job, where he's the spokesman for the campaign of the ruling party for the president, he never talks about jobs. Never. He never talks about jobs created. He never talks about opportunities for youth. Nothing at all to that respect. So just to put things into light, this is where we stand with one of the ministries. And it'll be interesting. I think they had a retreat. When was that retreat? Where they all looked at the KPIs of the ministries and how well they performed. Yeah, okay. You three have done justice to the budget. Not really much for me to add as far as what's been passed. You went over the metrics, oil benchmarks, recurrent expenditure, the deficits, supplementary budgets, and so on and so forth. But a couple interesting quotes from what we saw yesterday with the plenary. I think Senator Ndume of Borno State. My worry is that this is the reality of what we're doing today. It is today that this Senate has considered to extend the budget by 90 days. This budget, even if approved, how realistic is it going to be? By the time we process this and the due process that is required in budget implementation for contract execution, it cannot be circumvented. He continues saying that if that is the case, assuming we pass it today, we have 90 days to implement. If it is agreed that some of these monies have to be spent within 90 days, it is not possible. Let us not deceive ourselves. We should amend the 2023 budget to take care of these projects so that they will have 12 months of implementation. Then, of course, you already discussed Ways and Means being that advance being rejected because of the law. So they already pushed that aside, and there was a quote from, is it Senator from Cross River? He was talking about the laws that essentially do not allow for this to pass.
Senator Sekibo.
Sekibo, there he is, yeah. So Mr. Senator Thompson Sekibo from River said, Mr. President, the relevant laws clearly show that 22.7 trillion Ways and Means advances already spent by the federal government without informing the National Assembly was wrong, and it would be unfair as representative of Nigerians to approve this request. So look, as far as the senator who came on the floor to applaud the government for bringing... No, so here's the thing. We at this point, what do? The reality for Nigeria is that the borrowing has to continue. You've boxed yourself into a corner where if you implement the Aronsaye reports, you fire half of your civil service, and unemployment, which is, 33%, that spikes. It spikes. Now you're firing half of them. No, I'm done. That's the end of my presentation. So what do you want to do about the Aronsaye report? How do you prevent the unemployment going up?
When you put in the Aronsaye reports, what you tactically, honorably first cut down is the level of ghost workers in this place.
Does that account for...
Wait, let me finish. When you cut down ghost workers, then what you do is you retool people that are going to lose their job based on this. You make the civil service more agile, you make it more nimble, you introduce technology, it becomes more effective, and the deliverables increase. Rotus, we can't keep making decisions based on sentiment. We've kicked this Aronsaye report down the road. In fact, we set up a committee called Aronsaye. He had a report. We've set up another committee to review the report, to review it over and over again. Yeah. We've reviewed it over and over again. And look at it, Rotus. Look at your own charts. The current expenditure, 8 trillion. Yeah. Capital expenditure, 5 trillion. So who is deceiving who?
Right.
And that's what will lead us to, Your Ministry of Labour. Anyway, in all fairness, I will not hold Mr. Kiyamo or Mr. Ngigi for no recent unemployment data. That one is in the doorstep of MBS, and we call them out for it. MBS, please, we beg you, release that data.
But if you are the Minister of Employment and Labour, aren't you supposed to put pressure on the Bureau of Statistics to update us on our unemployment data? It falls under their purview now.
It falls under their purview. Yeah. But a lot of people too also will tell you that the MPS has a level of independence. It releases its data not with the pushing of any other person in the economy.
Anyway.
So they should release their data. Secondly, unemployment at 3%. We all see it in society. That's why it's so easy to recruit thugs during political season. Youth unemployment 42%. Are you surprised? It's so easy to recruit thugs and all of that. So, Rotus, let's not put in the sentiment of the fact that if we implement the Orosei report, heaven will fall. Because it will not fall. We will go through the pain, we will get better. Is it not better than what we are doing now, kicking the can down the road with subsidies? And on top of all of this, with these ways and means of 22.7 trillion, we still want to collect another ways and means this year. Another 4 trillion.
The 891 billion supplementary is supposed to be sourced from the 1 trillion that they're asking for from the CBN.
For the CBN, okay. So it's not even 4 trillion, it's 1 trillion.
Yeah,
and
one,
you know,
it's one.
When the 1 trillion comes in...
4.49 trillion.
4.49 trillion. Yes.
For ways and means in the 2023 budget. The 1 trillion was approved by the National Assembly to fund the 819 supplementary budget.
Is that 4 trillion not part of the total 22 trillion that already has been borrowed from the ways and means?
No, it's a fresh provision. It's a fresh one.
It's now take it to 26 trillion
so
now.
So take it to 26 trillion. And you know what that means? That will be inflation. God bless you, Dr. Abati. So we are adding 4 trillion to the ways and means of 22 trillion before. That will now increase inflation, and they are putting inflation benchmark at 17%. Rotus.
Very quickly, there's an issue you brought up, the this day poll on state police.
Yes.
So nobody should be surprised that over 80%, the respondents voted yes for state police. This matter has been on the front burner for years, right? The police, as we have it now, is a creation of Section 214 of the 1999 Constitution. There shall be for Nigeria, for the Federation, a body that will be known as the Nigerian Police Force. So it's a centralized and over-centralized police force. Under Section 215, subsection 3, that police force takes directives directly from the President of Nigeria. There's a subsection there which says governors can give directives to the same police if they have issues. But the Commissioner of Police must take permission from the Inspector General of Police. The Inspector General of Police must take permission from the President of Nigeria. In Section 216, the President consults the Nigeria Police Council to appoint the Inspector General of Police, but that Nigerian Police Council, the President is the chairman. So you have a police force that is just the product of a unitary system of government. And people have been saying this is an inefficient structure and it cannot work. Now, the police have said, we have decentralized, we've created zones, we have created what they call community policing. Nobody knows how that has worked. It's one of the biggest things that you can come across within the Nigerian Federation. So in 2014, at the National Political Conference, it was resolved that, look, state police is the way to go. But that report from 2014 to date, nobody has touched it. So you find Nigerians still saying state police is the way to go. The excuse against it is that the native authority police that we had, which was later, put together and turned into a centralized police force, that it was abused by the politicians. But we now have a terrible situation where a governor called the chief security officer in a state cannot do anything about security. You all witnessed the drama of the Lagos state governor being told by the leader of a team from Abuja that I don't take instruction from a governor. I will have to talk to my superiors. So that's the kind of problem you have. Whereas in a place like the US, you have a far more decentralized. In other words, what Nigerians are looking for is more efficient policing. That's that. As regards Minister of Labour saying, next year they will increase salary because of rising inflation, it's just blowing hot air. It doesn't mean it. There is a National Minimum Wage Act of 2019, which President Buhari assented to in April 2019. As of September 2022. Many states have not implemented that minimum wage of 30,000.
Right.
Many of the governors opposed it, but at the end of the day, they have not implemented it. So why don't we start from there? He himself was saying that 2022 is the year of labor dispute. Right. The same government that does not want to pay university teachers. Yeah. The same government that witnessed strikes from National Association of Resident Doctors, from the Joint Health Workers Union. Now he's saying Salaries and Wages Commission is looking at, no, I don't think he's being sincere about it. Finally, on the Oronsaye report, are you aware that this same National Assembly, apart from ignoring the Oronsaye report, which have been looked at by the Amapepu Committee, which have been looked at by 2 different white paper committees, they are not looking at it. They are creating, more according agencies. To one investigation, more agencies. So you are going to have more bloated government, and in the face of dwindling revenue, greater inefficiency and frustration in the public service.
All right, just to wrap up on that, and with the statement from the Minister of Labour and Employment with regards to increasing wages of workers, civil servants in Nigeria, a very hopeful headline towards the end of the year. Maybe it's a Christmas injection to infuse joy and laughter, because as has been said again and again, we've been having conversations around revenue, the lack of it, the lack of implementation of the 30,000 naira by some state governors. The big question is, when they make statements like that Nigerians should be asking is, where is the money coming from? How is this going to be actualized? You can't just, and I think that, ministers like Mr. Kwizigi should be careful with statements that they make. It is unfair and it is misleading to make statements like this without any backing as to how this will be actualized. Thank you very much, Rotus.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rotus. Right. We'll take a short break now, and when we return, we'll be talking to Nelson Equijume, Executive Director, Center for Rights and Grassroots Initiative, and Adeyinka Olumide Fushika, a senior advocate of Nigeria. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
As you adjust to the new realities for operating your business and engaging with your customers, let us help you transform your business into a digital powerhouse capable of adapting and taking advantage of today's opportunities. With our best-in-class array of digital solutions, you can conduct your business, receive payments from your customers, and perform transactions quickly, safely, and conveniently, because we've got you covered with the right people, technology, and service offerings. Contact us today and let us take your business to its zenith. Zenith Bank, in your best interest.
I'm about to serve better breakfast.
If you're in Lagos, you need to see this.
I'm not just streaming content, I'm just escaping traffic.
Get more data to enjoy exclusive content. Dial *141# now.
Airtel, the smartphone network. My brother, my sister, do you know that winning an election is not only about getting the majority vote? For that your candidate to be declared winner of the election, he or she must secure 25% of the vote in 2/3 of all states plus the FCT to be president, and 25% of the vote in 2/3 of all local governments of a state to be governor. This is constitutional, and every presidential candidate has had to pass this threshold. Even governors have had to make this mark to get elected in their states. We live in one country with different languages, religions, and ethnic groups. This is why it is not enough to have only northern votes, or southern votes, or eastern votes, or western votes. The only way to get elected as president or governor is by gaining enough support across the country and states. Let us make sure that we know now so that we don't cause an issue tomorrow. This message is brought to you by the Center for Democracy and Development, CDD, with support from the Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office, FCDO.
Set to take the African continent and the world by storm. They are giants in every sense of the word, and they will bring entertainment that's just as big. Don't miss the first ever season of Big Brother Titans with two African giants, Naija and Nsamse, under Biggie's roof together. Big Brother Titans starts on Sunday, 15th of January on DSTV 198, GoTV 29, and African Magic. Headline sponsor, Bamboo, Flutterwave, and Lotto Star.
Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. What started out as a happy Christmas celebration for the Rahim family ended in mourning as a trigger-happy police officer took the life of Bolanle Rahim, a Lagos-based lawyer. Vandi, a policeman attached to the Ajah police station, and his team reportedly tried to stop Rahim and her family members as they drove back from a Christmas Day church service. The policeman shot the vehicle while trying to make a U-turn under the Ajah Bridge. Bolanle Rahim was hit by the gunshot and rushed to a hospital where she was confirmed dead. Lagos State Police spokesman Benjamin Hundeyin said Vandi, who has now been detained, is an assistant superintendent of police and has been transferred to the State Criminal Investigation Department. Lagos State Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu condemned the killing of Mrs. Rahim and has promised that justice will be served speedily. Joining us on this show right now to discuss how this case should be taken up and what needs to be done to avoid another occurrence in the future is Nelson Ekujumi, Executive Director, Center for Rights and Grassroots Initiative, and Adeyinka Olumide Fushika, a senior advocate of Nigeria. Welcome to the morning show, gentlemen.
Good morning. Thank you for having
Well,
me.
Mr. Ekujumi, Mr. Fushika, thank you for joining us. I have a question each for you. Mr. Ekujumi, you are in the province of civil liberties and rights and all of that. Have we learned any lesson from the NSAS protests about police brutality? And is there any hope that justice will be done in this regard? Mr. Fushika, yesterday, the House of Representatives passed a resolution saying that policemen should be banned from taking alcohol when they are on duty. Of what effect is that resolution, considering the fact that Section 100 of the Police Act already declares being drunk while on duty and in uniform illegal, and Principle 5 of the Police Code of Conduct also says exactly the same thing. So the House of Reps members now saying they have passed this resolution on an existing provision of the law. Of what effect is that? Let me start with you, Mr. Ekujumi.
Well, thank you very much. You recognize that the NSAS protest was started based on police brutality and abuse of citizens' rights. And the panels have made recommendations. So for me, I think it will be too early in the day because some of the panels just submitted their report last year. And some of the recommendations of which I'm privy to is the psychological reevaluation of policemen. And you want to ask even if this is going to be carried out, it's not something that will be done within a day and you start seeing the results tomorrow. But, like the panels, the various panels have given their recommendations. I think it should be work in progress. I think Nigerians should demand, the implementation of those recommendations. Then looking at this case, like this matter, very, very sad, I commiserate with the family and of the disease and, pray that the Almighty will grant her eternal rest. It's a very unfortunate one. One can only hope, based on the attention it has generated, even to the presidency, that the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria had to make a statement, and the National Assembly has also, become involved in it, because the representative of the constituency where the slain woman lived, has also raised it at the House of Representatives. I watched it on TV even last night. And so for me as a Nigerian, I feel dehumanized by this act. I sympathize, even with the police, because I believe strongly that this act of this officer does not represent, what the Nigerian police stands for. And as a Nigerian who is conscious and who is believing that we deserve a better police, I will encourage us all, to come out and demand, speedy justice in this matter.
Well, Mr. Olumide Fushika, the House of Reps resolution, whether that has any effect instead of what the law already says.
Well, let me start by joining Nelson in commiserating and Nigerians in general, commiserating with the family of Bolanle, my now late colleague of the legal profession. I listened to the mom's, or I read about the mom's, agony in the papers, how she labored hawking oranges in order to send her to school. And without being ill or anything, just cut down at the time she should be reaping the reward of the sacrifices she made to make sure that this lady became a lawyer. It's very harrowing, and I was almost crying when I read it myself. About the House of Reps state resolution, when things like this happen, government agencies, people in authority need to be seen to be doing something. So I think that they just needed to be heard, the House of Rep, to be heard, to be seen to be doing something about it. The president issued a statement. It's typical when things like this happen. You even hear the Inspector General of Police giving instruction that incidents, should be investigated as if, they needed a special instruction, or even the president directing the police to ensure that the thing is investigated and so on and so forth. I think it's just a way of our public officers insinuating themselves into public discourse to, in order for the citizens to think that they are doing something, they are trying to address the situation. Like you have pointed out, Dr. Abati, we don't need any resolution. There's no law that says a policeman should be drunk on duty. In fact, it is expressly prohibited already. What the House of Reps should be concerned about, or should be more interested about, is how come these rules are not obeyed, and what can be done about enforcing, not in passing resolutions over and over again. Don't get drunk on duty. So it's just like that. It's a useless resolution. It's other than bringing attention to the House of Rep that, we are doing something about it. I don't see what value the resolution is going to bring to this situation. I must just say, in quick reaction to Nelson too, saying that the act does not represent what the police, Nigerian police, stand for. Then the question is, what exactly does the Nigerian police stand for? Maybe we could take it from there and see what they stand for. This is nothing new. In fact, before this particular incident, that same area, officers from that same police station had a week before, done the same thing. The reason why there's much attention on this is because of the personality involved. It happens regularly. And what has the police done to prevent reoccurrence in these things from this, persistence in this kind of events? What have they done? So to say that that is not what they stand for. What led to the NSAS protest, for instance? Was it not a case of police, this kind of behavior by the police? If you go through most of the police stations during this period, you find so many people innocent, I will use the word innocent, detained, just because some policemen, decide that they need their share of, they must make some extra money during this period. Go to the police station, you see them there. My firm was, at least this period, we've been involved in about 2 cases where people are just arrested, put in detention. You have to pay to get bail and so on and so forth. So to say that the police stands for anything right now, I would not agree with Nelson. I'm not trying to run them down. I mean, they are not specially bad. They are not, worse than every Nigerian institution. I'm not, but the police, what we have as police now reflects the kind of country we have. It's not that they are specially bad. Go to the courts, go to, you can even see, doctor said she was rushed and pronounced dead at a particular hospital. The account was that was about the 3rd hospital that this lady would be rushed to. If the medical situation in Nigeria is any good, perhaps you could even have been saved at the first hospital if it is really an hospital, so to say. This time it is not about getting police report before you treat victim of gunshot and so on and so forth. It's just that the facilities were not there for them to attend to it. So the 3rd hospital was where she was eventually pronounced there. So it reflects the state of autonomy we have in the country today. So I'm not trying to run the police down as especially bad. There's no institution in Nigeria today that you look at and give a pass mark. That's the truth. So I think we should stop pampering ourselves, saying the police does not stand for this. We are just pampering ourselves. We should admit what we are. Unless we admit that we have a problem, how are we going to solve it? That's all I have to say for now.
Well, thank you, Mr. Olumide Fusika. You just highlighted the sentiments of many Nigerians. I'll come to you, Mr. Nelson. The Nigerian police have been accused of a flagrant disregard of the rights of the citizens of Nigerians. So you go before a police officer and you're trying to state your rights, have a right to a lawyer. They won't even let you speak. In fact, instead what we get is that they advise you how to behave in front of the police so that you avoid getting killed. Don't speak too much, but things like that. So there's a restriction on the rights of Nigerians. What are CSO, civil society organizations like your group doing to continue, organizations like yourselves, like your organization, doing to promote the upholding of the rights of the citizens of Nigeria, particularly before the police? And then for Mr. Fusika, I'd like to ask you in terms of you've talked about there being a rot in systems or institutions in Nigeria. What is the legal? What's the legal body doing to ensure that we deal with this? What's the legal provision for that? Can we sue? What is the process of the courts? How can we make it more efficient? I'll come to you first, Mr. Nelson.
Yes, thank you very much. Civil liberties organizations, quite a lot are busy in various areas, and there are some that are devoted to, judicial and procedural reforms. I'm aware that some organizations are interfacing very well with the policing institution, that they have regular trainings, seminars, workshops, and what have you, in order to fine-tune the police to modern policing, mechanism. So as human beings, every day we learn. And as civil rights organizations, the level of this, what this tells us is that we still have a long way to go. But like I said earlier on, if anybody, in as much as we must condemn acts that have gone against the Constitution at any point in time, but I want to say with all sense of responsibility that the police is a reflection of we, the people. The way they behave is the way we behave at home. We behave in our clubs, in our institutions. Because when we talk about institutions don't make themselves. Institutions are made by human beings. It's the human beings that function there. So what is happening now is it's one that calls for introspection that, look, how are we going to ensure that the police is one that we can be proud of? As of today, the conduct of some officers or some policemen does not reflect, what we expect them to do. Because as a policeman, when you are enlisted into the police, you are bound by your oath of service. And that oath does not give you the right to abuse the rights of other citizens. It's not allowed. So we need to upscale our engagement with the police. We must, even at the community level, bring the police into our various activities at the local level. Make them feel like one of us. That, look, this attitude of when we come to you, we are like strangers, is what is causing that big gap and, these shortcomings that we have in policing activities. So at the level of civil societies, organizations are interfacing seriously with the police, and one can only hope that we continue to get support from more than these organizations to help in fine-tuning the psychology and the mental state of our policing institution.
Thank you, Mr. Fushika. From a legal perspective, in terms of how do we begin to sanitize institutions, particularly as the police is in view this morning?
The problem with us is not the absence of laws. It's not as if we don't have laws and how these things should be done. It's implementation that is our issue. Now, there's one example I always like to give when it concerns the police. All our big men in Lagos, well, not in Lagos alone, all over Nigeria, you see them concentrated in the Ikoyi, Victoria Island area. That's where they live, that's where they have their offices. If you go on the, is it the Kingsway Bridge? When you're on top of that bridge, just if you are coming from the VI end towards Ikoyi, just look to your right. You see where they call police barracks, where our policemen live. And you will cry for this country that, how fellow human beings can be expected to be living in that kind of condition, and then you give them guns, ammunition, and you send them on the road, All these big men, none of them will say, they cannot be blind. I mean, even if they are not very, once they go on that bridge, they can see it. They can, and then, you then begin to wonder, House of Rep, House of Senators, governors and all that. They go on that bridge every day. That just shows you. And that's Ikoyi. I'm not talking of other areas in Lagos. That's supposed to be the most affluent part of Lagos State, if not the entirety of Nigeria. And you see in the midst of that affluence, the squalor, the condition the Nigerian policemen live in. So how do you expect normal human beings? Well, I'm sorry, I'm not saying policemen are normal, but how do you expect normal behavior from people coming from that kind of environment? The budgeting procedure, how do they handle the money that is budgeted for them? You see policemen on the roads, you ask yourself, what are they doing? If you are coming to, I run a small legal practice. Everybody in this office knows when you are coming in the morning to the office, you know what you are supposed to come and do, you know who is going to supervise you. At the end of the day, there must be a review, what have you done, and so on and so forth. What you find here in the Nigerian police force, is you just find people, they just recruit, put them in uniform, give them gun. What exactly are they supposed to be doing? Who is supervising them? Everybody is an officer on his own, doing whatever he likes, And they've mainstreamed it in such a way that even at the topmost level, where you think that this gentleman now, ASP, has been in the force for the one allegedly involved in this incident, 33 years. So it's not it's an experienced police officer. But they've mainstreamed this bad behavior. And it is not about law. It is not as if there are no laws in Nigeria. The Nigerian police force is a creation of law itself, how they are supposed to operate and so on. They don't even bother. All they do is, the divisions that the Nigerian police force is supposed to have, the, S squad, D squad, all stipulated in the police act. But you find them setting up all sorts of funny organizations, Operation this, Operation that, Operation so, all for nothing. So I would think that we should take the police. If you have a business and the business is consistently underperforming or not performing, if you ask Professor Patutomi, who is a business, they will tell you what to do. Either, you wind down the business, or you bring in a professional from outside to come and look at it, and somebody with you don't promote somebody from inside. You bring in an external person who can then look at, okay, what are they doing wrong? What are they doing right? How can we right it? You can do mergers. You can do all sorts, We've tried a bit of it in creating, say, for instance, EFCC, ICPC, because these are what we've given to them are basic police functions. But because we are trying to find a solution to the problem that the police has become, we then set up all these agencies and all that, diminuting the functions of the police, running away from it rather than tackling it headlong. Perhaps it might be time for us to. I've made the suggestion before, and policemen were very angry with me, saying that why don't I say they should dissolve the country itself? Maybe we should dissolve it and start all over again. There should be no shame about it. The truth of the matter is that we've lost the act. It's not about carrying gun. You must organize. You must know how to run an organization. If you ask the Inspector General of Police today, how many policemen do we have in Nigeria? He may not know. He may not know the number of men under his control, under his command. The central bank, what the equivalent of central bank of is England or Britain, is the governor is a Canadian. So there should be no shame about it. If we need external help to, start afresh, set up the police, reboot, and then begin to look at, maybe we'll find a solution, we may be able to get out of this problem. The way it is now, promoting people from inside the police to become Inspector General of Police, each one of them should go back and think, what have they achieved? How have they solved the problem? Take the basic issue of welfare of the police men, for instance. There's an Inspector General of Police. He comes to Lagos. He sees his men living in that barrack that I just told you about in Ikoyi. He does nothing about it. He's not concerned. He's not bothered. And he expects the policemen. I don't know. So I think, my own solution is dissolve it. Dissolve the police. Start afresh. Bring fresh people. You cannot achieve anything by promoting somebody who has been in the police collecting bribe all his life and making him Inspector General of Police and thinking that the police will be reformed. It's not going to work.
Just some quick corrections. The current central bank governor in England is Andrew Bailey, and he's British. The former governor was Mark Carney, a Canadian, right? And also other people will say, there's a Yoruba saying that what it means is that it is not by cutting the head off that will solve the problem. In fact, there's an analogy we normally give in a very joking way, that if you take all the Nigerians away from Nigeria, take them to London, and you bring all the people in London and bring them to Nigeria, in 5 years, Nigeria will start to look like London, and London that you took Nigerians to will start to look like Nigeria. Where am I trying to go to? I'm trying to go to culture. So even if you change everybody, as long as there's a debilitating culture, and like they say in management speak, culture will eat strategy for breakfast. So the problem that behoves us all now is how can we fix the cultural problem of our society that both of you have alluded to. It's that culture that permeates into every other sector. That's why it looks as though things are not working. It is that culture that permeates into the political class and all of that. It is that culture that represents our society. I'll come to you first, Mr. Nelson Ikujimi, and after I'll come to SAN Fashuka.
Okay, I will address this. I don't think it's only culture. It's the fallout of the erosion of our values.
Which is culture?
Yes, as a young man, when I was growing up, just some years back.
Are you an old man now?
No, I'm a middle-aged man. When I was growing up, you recognize that there's this adage that only one person gives birth to a child, but it is the community that trains the child. In my house then, or in my community, your parents, your neighbor dare not discipline you. And you get home and tell your father, Daddy Nkechi beats me. You will take ×3 of that, disciplinary measure from your father. Why am I saying this? A lot of times I've seen people complain about security agencies, especially police. And I tell them it is the erosion of our... Because these policemen are members of our family. They didn't drop from the moon. When I was growing up, if two people are fighting and you hear the sound of Olopa and Bo, the policeman is just going on his way, he's going to his office. The two fighters will take off because you know definitely the policeman will arrest the two of you. But these days, even when you bring out knife and a policeman is passing by, he will behave as if it's none of his business. His business is to maintain law and order. He doesn't have to be called. Just like SAN has said, you have sworn oath to maintain law and order. So you don't need directive from anybody. So it is this erosion of our values, our culture, like Rufai just said, that we need to work on. Because even in our homes, can you imagine a parent that the child is not working? Like you might say, your child is not a launderer, is bringing home clothes. Parents, a son or a son is in the university, and the son is buying Toyota Corolla, and you are celebrating it without the young man having any means of livelihood. So where we are today,
or a young girl who says she has big God, small girl, big God, building houses every year.
Building houses every year. So that we don't, mainstream it to only the male folk. So I think where we have gotten to today is a reflection of how we have all failed as a people, primarily from the home. When these days we focus majorly on the girl child. Oh, the girl should not go out, he should not dress this way. But the boy can sag. The boy can make anyhow. So it calls to question how the family institution has collapsed in this country. And unless and until we stop this scapegoatism, blaming others, and look at how because like the SAN rightly said, it is not only the policing institution that has, failed. Every other institution of state. I remember when I took my daughter to write a common entrance examination in a school. And when the girl came out after the exam, the girl told me that, Daddy, the auntie in my class was calling the answer for us. I was like, oh my God. At this level? So we must all recognize that, look, we have a lot of work in our hands. And if as a policeman, like it happened in other crimes, the policeman recognizes that first, before he's a policeman, he's an ambassador of your home, then the better will go.
SAN, what can we do as regards this? Because it's a debilitating cultural problem we have on our hands. And that's why our society has gone down the drain.
If I just a quick reaction to what you pointed out in your intervention earlier on. Look, the Nigerian police, or policing generally, an organization is a complex organization. You need skill to be able to put all the bits and pieces together and run an effective and efficient police. Earlier on this morning, I heard you discussing about introducing state police and and so on and so forth. The point I was trying to make is not about cutting off the head, as you have said. If you go to all our leaders, they go to Dubai regularly, they see how things work, and they come back. Oh, they wish, many of those things you see in Dubai are not. The people running it are not Dubai citizens. You have people from all over the world. All I'm trying to say is, look for those with the skill to run the institution. It doesn't mean that we don't even have them in Nigeria. People who can run such an institution. We may have them in Nigeria, but outside the Nigerian police force. maybe the area of reform that we can be looking at, if you want to promote people now to, get to the peak of become Inspector General of Police, you must, be within the police itself. You cannot go outside the police, for instance, to go and appoint an Inspector General of Police for Nigeria, and then we expect that whoever he is must be a Nigerian, But something as mundane as football, we get foreign coaches to come and, be our foreign coach or whatever. It doesn't mean that Nigerians are not going to work in this institution. It's still Nigerians that will still work in the institution. But the police is a complex thing. And it seems that over the years, the people, we have somehow lost that skill of running such a complex organization, a complex institution. That's the point I'm making. So if you need to go and seek help from outside Nigeria, let's go and do it. We fought colonialism. We don't want, all this. But the world now is like they say, it's a global village or whatever. Go for people who have the training. Make them, bring them in. Let them help us. Let me put it that way. We need help. And it's obvious that what we have currently in Nigeria, we cannot help ourselves. We need help. It doesn't mean that we are sacking every policeman in Nigeria. No, that's not what. If you are not dissolving, and starting all over again, then look for help where you can get it. Let them come in and retrain us. It takes something as mundane as we are talking of. They normally talk money. It's not about money. Take Lagos State for instance. If you are observing Rufai on the road, how many vehicles have Lagos State government bought for the Nigerian police? Regularly to replenish the stock of their vehicles. You see sometimes brand new vehicles all over. Give it 1 month, 2 months, you begin to see how rickety those vehicles have become because they cannot manage it. They don't know, they even put it on the road arresting. They themselves, they don't have lights on their vehicle. They are arresting people without brake lights and so on and so forth, policemen. They don't understand that if you are going to do things like that, you yourself must come out, you must be in tandem with the law. Not that you will be breaking the law and claiming that you are enforcing the law. What do they do with their budget? Who controls them? How is it managed? Recently, one of the cases I was citing, when one of the police officers, was trying to justify the bribery and corruption taking place. One important, very important, in fact, very important police formation in Lagos. And he was saying all these things you see because the place was wearing a new look, clean environment and all that. And he was telling me that it is from money like this that the head there was using to maintain the facilities, paint the place, and so on and so forth. So the National Assembly budgets for the police. Every police station in Nigeria now, how much do they get? The police formation all over the place. How much do they get to maintain their facilities, maintain their vehicles, and so on and so forth? Is the National Assembly interested in that? Do they go through all this? And at the end of the day, when they do their oversight function and all that, do they ensure that the money gets to where it's supposed to get to? Some other times you say, oh, it's gone, because they don't have guns and all that, and we buy guns all over the place. I was at a party this last weekend at a hotel. The number of policemen bearing arms in the place with bullets and all that in a social party. What are they doing there? Nobody knows. Who sent them there? What is their purpose? They are accompanying one person or the other. That's the only reason why a policeman will be on the street carrying gun at Ajah. There's no riot. There's nothing going on there. Even if there were to be riot, or must you carry live ammunition? And we, dramatize this problem and say, oh, it's because they don't have arms. It's not most of the crime. What is the percentage of crime in Nigeria that is violent? If you look at it, very insignificant. On the Third Mainland Bridge now, I go through it every day. The barrier, what's it called? Is it that iron barrier that you have on the Third Mainland Bridge? I've been in Lagos since I think 1987. Yeah, 87 was when I first got to Lagos. You see it beautiful and all that. Every day you see a section of it cut. They've replaced it. Somebody will go there and cut it again. There's Nigerian police. You don't need arms and ammunition to do that. Basic crime they cannot even solve. All they know is carry gun and all that. So when you are talking about this culture, we can unlearn this bad culture that we have. But the only way you can unlearn it by putting, you will need to seek help from other places. That's what I'm trying to say. Education is important. When they say they are training the Nigerian police force, you saw the scandal the other time, Ikeja Police College or whatever, what happened, how they claimed to be training the policemen and so on and so forth. Are they doing it deliberately? It may be because they don't even know how to train policemen. So why don't we look for people who have, good police formation, learn from their experience, seek help from their own, how they train their officers, how they organize their whatever and so on and so forth. The police had not always been like this. What you find out is that the farther we get away from our colonial experience, of course it's a colonial formation, but the farther away we get from our police, from our colonial experience, how it was organized, how they were doing that time, the worse it has become for us, for the police. We gradually have lost that skill of how to put things together, how to, run a complex police institution. That is what we need to relearn. And I do not believe that we'll relearn it by promoting, people from within the same system and say, okay, go and run the police. How many IGPs have we had during this civilians from 1999? Which one of them can come out and say, when I was there, this was what I did to reform the police? They are running, they just want to get in there, run it, make their own money, and, leave the problem for Nigerians. So we cannot continue that way. We really need to take drastic measures and drastic action. And if we need to go and seek help from outside, bring somebody, maybe a Briton to be Inspector General of Police in Nigeria, is not to take over everything. So that we retrain, retool. Let us do it.
Point well made. We have just about a minute to go. You pointed out that one of the reasons there's so much interest in the Bolale Rahim case is because of a high-profile, position and all that people get killed every time. I've had cause to cite on this program the example of a gentleman called Godsent Obafonso, who was killed in Uromi, in Edo State. 2-3 months later, the brother has been going to the police to, in fact, start investigations. First, they collected 200,000 from him. He has petitioned for autopsy. They collected 30,000 from him. What advice will you give persons who find themselves in that situation, whose relatives get killed needlessly, and the police will just ignore them? Briefly, we have just about 2 minutes to go.
Well, you've started an extreme situation, cases of people getting killed. You cannot go to the police today, to lodge any complaint and expect them to act without taking money from you. That's the sad truth. And they justify it. They don't have any money to move from one spot to another spot. They won't use their own meager salary, take from their own meager salary to go and do it. You have to fund them. Recently, I was, one of my wife's own, shops was boggled, and we reported and so on and so forth. You have to use the word mobilize them to move from one spot to the other. And at the end of the day, nothing will even come out of the investigation, because when they get the other party, they are looking for. Look, the situation is sad. The advice I will give to such people is the advice I was given on one occasion. Dr. Abati, there was a time the police came out quickly. It was a time the police came out and said, oh, if you see illegal checkpoints and all that, they are not supposed to be there. They gave us numbers to run. So I was traveling from Lagos to Benin, and at one location, these policemen stopped us and were harassing us and all that. No number, no name, no nothing. But they were policemen, of course. So in my own non-conformist, I did not want to, succumb. So I quickly brought out my phone and called the number. And the advice I was given by them was, where are you? I told them. Describe them. I described, and they said, cooperate with them, because where you are now, if they deal with you, there's nothing we can do from this end. So I had to, calm down, and, began to behave the way I was advised to behave. So if you have that kind of situation, and right now in the current system we are running, you have to, and you are interested in finding out the killers of your relatives and so on and so forth. You have no option than to cooperate. Thank you.
On that note, we'd like to thank you very much, Adeyinka Olumide Fushika, SAN, and Nesine Kujime, who is with us here in the studio. So sad, really sad.
Really sad. Thank you. It's time now for a short break on the morning show. When we return, we'll have Arise News analyst Emmanuel Efeni join us to review top stories in today's newspapers. Stay with us.
Emergencies happen when you least expect them to. It gets worse when you are cash strapped. No need to despair. First Advance has you covered. You can get that urgent cash right now on First Advance. With First Advance, salary earners can get up to 50% of their salary. No hassles. As long as you earn a monthly salary and your salary account has been active for at least 2 months. It doesn't matter if you run a salary account with First Bank or any other bank. Just dial star 894 star 11 hash or simply dial star 894 hash on your mobile phone. What's more, when you open a First Bank salary account, you can enjoy 0 charges and free debit card issuance. Download the First mobile app on Play Store or App Store today. Log in to experience First Bank digital banking. Select loans, select First Advance, and follow the prompts to receive your loan. Don't let that urgent need get the best of you. Get First Advance now. It's as simple as dialing star 894 star 11 hash. First Advance. Fast, convenient, secure. You first. First Bank.
Patricia, crypto made easy.
Lagos has amassed more wealth than any other state in the country to be the most comfortable city to live in.
Now Lagos is earning 51 billion naira every month.
But even with all that money, this is the Lagos you have now. Bad roads filled with potholes, poor drainage system resulting in floods during rainy season, incessant traffic congestions, increased environmental pollution, poor healthcare system, large-scale child begging, poor security and increased crime rate, impunity of state government officials, lack of clean drinking water, poor transportation system. After years of empty promises, Lagos is now rated as the second worst city to live in the world. How long shall we continue like this? Lagos is not working. We want our Lagos back. Vote Dr. Abdulaziz Olajide Adediran Jandor as governor of Lagos State. Chafueko, fight for Lagos.
PDP, power to the people.
The National Pension Commission PENCOM is pleased to inform the general public that the third edition of pension enhancement under the Contributory Pension Scheme CPS has been approved. The exercise is for existing retirees under programmed withdrawal who have accumulated significant growth in their retirement savings accounts RSAs. The effective commencement date of the enhancement is February 2023. All relevant retirees are by this notice advised to contact their respective pension fund administrators to complete their required documentation. PENCOM assures all stakeholders of its commitment to the effective regulation, supervision, and administration of pension matters in Nigeria. Management announcer.
This na Emeka. He like to dey keep money for her. As CBN deadline don dey near so. This one na wise Emeka. As he don hear say deadline dey near, he wan carry money go deposit for the right place with Access Bank.
It's time to spread your wings and fly. Reach for the sky.
Even if the bank too far, na to go to the nearest Access Closer agent. No carry last with your money.
Get up right now, right now.
Money wey you deposit for Access Bank, na money wey go make your mind rest well well. Don't let the money spoil for your hand o. 10 million naira today, fit be 0 naira tomorrow. Oya o, Musa, Shade, Onyinye, carry your money go Access Bank or Access Closer agent when near you. Access, more than banking.
New Naira notes? Don't panic. Here's what you need to know. Ensure to make deposits of all old banknotes before January 31, 2023. To make the process seamless for you, all Fidelity Bank branches will be open till 6 p.m. on weekdays and 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. on Saturdays to allow for cash deposits only. Also, please note that bank charges on all cash deposits have been suspended by the CBN. However, charges shall still be applied on cash withdrawals. The new banknotes can be accessed at any Fidelity Bank branch nationwide from December 15, 2022. Old banknotes will remain in circulation till January 31, 2023, when they will cease to be legal tender, as directed by the CBN. For more inquiries, follow us on our social media channels or email us at true.serve@fidelitybank.ng. You can also call 0700 3035 489 or reach us on WhatsApp on 090 3000 5252. Thank you for banking with us.
We are Fidelity. We keep our word.
Introducing an all-time mega offer. Get over 50% discount in the Airtel Home Broadband mega offer. Buy a router for just 10,000 naira and get up to 240 gigabyte or a MiFi for 5,000 naira and get up to 125 gigabyte bonus data. More data, more you. Reliable home broadband buy.
Airtel, the smartphone network.
Getting together for the first time in years was a little bit awkward. Grandpa still tried to entertain us. Mom was always stealing the spotlight from the kids. It wasn't until Grandma cracked a joke
That's my favorite prayer.
that we got back into our groove. In this festive, DSTV is making family time even better with an upgrade.
Stay connected to DSTV and we'll upgrade you to the next package for free.
Welcome back to the Morning Show here on Arise News. Joining us now to review some of the headlines of today's newspapers from around the world is Arise News analyst Emmanuel Efeni. Good morning, Emmanuel.
Good morning, Ruben. Good morning, Rufai. Good morning, Ayo.
Good morning.
Yes, let's start with this day, Nigeria's newspaper of record. Before the lead story, just above the lead story, Uzodinma mourns as Obiozo, leader of Ohanaeze Ndigbo, dies at 80. Professor Obiozo, George Obiozo, the president of, the leader of Ohanaeze Ndigbo, of course, one-time DG of the Nigerian Institute of International Affairs, former Nigerian ambassador to the U.S., and a regular resource...
High Commissioner to Cyprus?
Yes, High Commissioner to Cyprus.
Also ambassador to the United States.
Yes, a regular resource person on this program. Of course, we commiserate with his family, his immediate family, and of course, Indigbos worldwide. Now, the lead story, National Assembly passes 2023 budget, raises proposed spending by 1.32 trillion naira to 21.82 trillion naira. Works on housing, defense ministries get highest allocation, approves 819.54 billion 2022 supplementary budget. Fresh borrowing to be sourced from CBN. to fund projects, extends 2022 budget implementation to March. Tension in Senate drops President's 23.7 trillion Ways and Means advances request. Adjourns plenary till January 17. Other newspapers are reporting this story. The New Telegraph, Senate in rowdy session over CBN's 22.7 trillion loan to federal government. Opposition lawmakers kick, say it's unconstitutional as Red Chamber summons Finance Minister, CBN Governor. Others urges Apex Bank to extend Naira withdrawal limit policy to June 30, 2023. The Nigerian Tribune, Ways and Means, uproar in Senate over Buhari's request to approve 22.7 trillion already spent. Senators allege constitutional infraction by President, seek extension of CBN's deadline on old Naira notes to June 31. Now, highlight of the budget, 8.3 trillion for recurrent non-debt expenditure, 5.9 trillion for capital expenditure, 6.5 trillion for debt servicing, 967 billion naira for statutory transfers. Yes, we are borrowing. We have almost exhausted all sources of external borrowing. And of course, the last resort, the central bank printing money, Ways and Means. And they've gone beyond the threshold according to extant laws. And the government failing to retire what has been printed, yet asking for more. Of course, he who goes a borrowing goes a sorrowing. Now, this case between the federal government and CBN printing money, it reminds me, I don't know, those who are old enough to know the man they call Idi Amin Dada. If you watch the movie on Idi Amin, remember when...
Last King of Scotland.
Yes, when he asked for money from the central bank, the central bank said, no money, he said, print more money. I hope that is not what we are doing. But clearly, in 2023, the economy will be in dire straits. So by the time President Buhari leaves office, I'll be surprised if this economy is not prostrate. So a cycle of failure will have been completed. Security promised, failed. Economy promised, failed. Of course, corruption, we know the story. And move on to other stories, please. The Punch newspaper, PDP threatens sanctions as G5 governors meet Tinubu in UK. APC presidential candidate intensifies lobby. Obi banks on Obasanjo backing. It's too late in the day to go back to Atiku. Reconciliation failed, says source. Governors on vacation. They are risking, the risk being disciplined for anti-party activities. PDP saying that. Of course, the Nation newspaper reporting the story. 2023, Wike, Makinde, others foreclose support for Atiku. G5 governors reject peace offers from South-South leaders. Now, if we just look at, yes, the Vanguard newspaper, the story below the photograph, Atiku, PDP must disciplinary action against G5 governors. Now, the Daily Trust newspaper, after selling 649 vehicles, EFCC auctions 160 houses, lands worth billions of naira. Desiani, ex-NIA DG's houses, others up for grabs. Government agencies, others to enjoy right of first refusal. Experts commend decision, advocate due process. Will announce revenue from sales soon. EFCC spokesman making that there. Now, if we just look at the Guardian newspaper, yes, person of the year 2022, Russia-Ukraine war. We are all victims. Yes, Ruben, you were involved for a long time in crafting this person of the year at Rutham House. Well, they have chosen Russia, Russo-Ukrainian war. We are all victims. Well, that's the choice of the newspaper for their person of the year. It's not something you debate, really. It's their choice. Now, the foreign newspapers quickly. The Daily Telegraph, extremist group funded by taxpayers. Yes, in the UK, governments de-radicalizing radicalization scheme revealed to be promoting militant bodies. Yes, the de-radicalization scheme prevents and de-radicalize, which the government put in place in the wake of 9/11 to steer away youths from militant Islam. Yes, that program ended up giving money to organizations whose key figures, of course, were actually promoting militant ideas and supporting the Taliban's defended militant Islamic ideas. Of course, the review by the independent review carried out by William Shawcross, a former head of Charity Commission in the UK, revealed that this program was actually funding people who were promoting radicalism and terrorism, even supporting preachers of hate speech in the UK. Ruben, Rufai, and Ayo.
Well, it looks like we've run out of time, but we'd like to thank you very much, Emmanuel Efene. We'll take a short break now. When we return, Ojinika Okpe will be here with details on what's trending. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
A reflection of the Nigerian never say die spirit. They never stay down. You're always thinking of how to improve. You're always thinking of how to move forward. My name is Emmanuel Ahimieho. I've been a civil engineer for 18 years. I'm the project manager of Obajana Kaba Road. The Obajana Kaba Road is 43 kilometers built completely of concrete pavement. We started work on December 2016. I remember when we came here, it was virtually lifeless. We're building a road that we know will need very minimal maintenance. It's a road that we don't need to rush back to in 5 years, trying to carry out major maintenance work. We don't need to import anything we need on the road. They are all locally available materials. All the cement we use on this road is from Dangote Cement Factory, which is the largest cement factory in Africa. The sand is from the communities, so people from the community, they end up becoming suppliers. Imagine supplying sand for a 43-kilometer road. It's a lot of money. There are things I've learned from building this concrete road that I never knew 10 years ago. And to be able to lead those people to achieve something worthwhile, something that is of value to them, to the community, to people who have never met us. And I am positive that the road will outlast most of the people who are building the road. Along this road, you have up to 12 communities. People have the confidence to open shops. Why? Because, someone is going through the road, they sell their things, they sell their goods. That is more money for them. We have a number of eateries now, and you want to buy food along the road, you get fresh food, not food that are preserved. No, you get fresh food. So it is good for us, and it's good for the community too. The road is a lot more safer now for everybody, including Halima, including other travelers. So they have better road, lesser crime, shorter journey times. So a lot of advantages. I've had people who go through the roads and they stop to just say, well done. We are proud of what is happening here. We're happy that this is going on in Nigeria in our time. We can see it. They are proud of it. I think it has brought life back to the communities. I feel very proud, extremely proud being a part of this project.
The Zenith Better Life promo is back, and it's bigger and better. You could be one of 20 lucky customers to win 150,000 naira every 2 weeks from now till January 31st, 2023. To qualify, simply open a Zenith Bank account and maintain a minimum balance of 5,000 naira. For more information, visit www.zenithbank.com/betterlife.
Zenith Bank, in your best interest.
Me and my guys see enter road, they flexing my brand new moto. My baby said she win me homo. Festival of Joy Globe promo, and my fans get fans with them still we know. Even if light off, we go still go. Hey, wait, now they don't carry lights. We the region, so my light go still show. It's the festival of Joy Globe promo. Fashion killer, dress code bigger. Win so we machine for the Glow Festival. My guy just they win left, right and center. That's the 611 hash to enter. Festival of Joy. Oh yeah. Festival of 611 hash to win and enjoy. Festival of Joy. Oh yeah. Festival. That's the 611 hash to enter.
Papa, mama, brother, sister, this Lagos must work for all of us. Everybody da fun Eko.
Oh yes, Lagos people, papa, mama, sister, brother, auntie, plus including uncle them. Better don't land for Lagos State gidigba. Money will be for Lagos State, then go use them for Lagos State. Wella, no more baba sope. Then no go chop Lagos State money. Nobody go pocket Lagos State. Then go take and build Lagos State, build road, build hospital, build houses, and now only one man fit do this job. His name na Abdulaziz Olajide Adediran Jando. He can't carry one obunge person as a deputy governor. Her name na Funke Akindele Jennifer. My people, what do we wait for? Make we vote for light, vote for change. No be the kind change where they vote before. This one na the original change. How Amumu don't do. Pay they pay.
Everybody da fun Eko.
Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Joining us now is Ojinika Ojiope with stories trending around the world.
Smiling too much.
Hello,
how are you? We had that conversation yesterday.
The studio, you just light up the room.
With my yellow too, right? How are you, Ayo?
Hello, Ojinik.
You know,
let me just Oji. And
I can give you, no, I can give you Jinik.
Sunshine.
No, take Jinik.
Yeah, Jinik Sunshine. You bright like, Dr. Bat says, and then you now want outfits appropriate for it.
Well, I know.
Absolutely.
Thank you for my puppy. I'm going to keep wearing it. How are you?
You're welcome. Very well.
Good morning, Rufai. How are you?
Yellow.
You know you like that song.
Sparkle, yellow,
Well, all right.
sparkling yellow.
Well, all right. Good morning to you, viewers. Here are some of the stories that are trending across the globe. In the United States, Barry Croft Jr., a Delaware trucker described as an architect of the conspiracy to kidnap Michigan's governor, was sentenced on Wednesday to more than 19 years in prison, the longest prison term yet given to anyone convicted in the plot. Croft was one of the key orchestrators in the 2020 scheme and had planned to blow up a bridge in the hope of inciting a civil war. Prosecutors had sought a life sentence for the 47-year-old, who was the fourth and final federal defendant to learn his fate in the most closely watched domestic terrorism case in recent years. In Italy, Pope Francis on Wednesday asked for prayers for his predecessor, Pope Benedict XVI, admitting that he is very sick. The Pope made the announcement during his weekly general audience, adding that the ailing 95-year-old former pontiff supports the church in silence. Benedict XVI was Pope from April 19, 2005 until his resignation on February 28, 2013. In Nigeria, the Inspector General of Police, Usman Alkali Baba, on Wednesday recommended the suspension of ASP Drambi Vandi, the officer arrested over the killing of Lagos-based lawyer Bolanle Rahim, who was shot dead on Christmas Day. Bolanle was said to have been pregnant with twins at the time of her death. The spokesperson of the Nigerian Police Force, Olamuyiwa Adejobi, in a statement said the suspension is in line with the internal disciplinary measures of the Nigeria Police Force. Under sports, the hotel room football star Lionel Messi stayed during the Qatar 2022 World Cup is set to be turned into a museum after Argentina's dramatic success at the tournament. The 35-year-old led Argentina to its first World Cup win since 1986 and was named player of the tournament after scoring twice against France. He also picked up the silver boot after netting 7 goals in the tournament. Messi's achievements are now set to be immortalized to allow keen fans to see how he spent his time between games in a dramatic campaign. Finally, under entertainment, James Cameron's Avatar, The Way of Water, has made cinema records, smashing past the $1 billion mark at the global box office. The epic blockbuster sequel, starring Sam Worthington, Zoe Saldana, and Kate Winslet, was released on December 16, 13 years after the original Avatar hit the big screen. The sequel now joins a list of the fastest movies to hit the coveted milestone in 2022, which includes Top Gun Maverick and Jurassic World Dominion. According to reports, Avatar, The Way of Water, earned more than $317 million in the United States alone and a whopping $712 million globally.
I need you to be strong.
So let's begin what's trending by paying tribute to Professor George Obiozor, President General of Ohanaeze Ndigbo Worldwide, who died on Wednesday after a brief illness. Professor Obiozor was a renowned academic and served as Nigerian ambassador to the United States, Israel, and Cyprus. He attended the Institute of African Studies in Geneva, Switzerland, and the University of South Tacoma in Washington, D.C., where he obtained a bachelor's degree in political science in 1968, before proceeding to Columbia University in New York, where he obtained a master's degree in international law. He served as a lecturer at Pratt Institute, New York City, between 1971 and 1975, and serves as an assistant professor of political science at City University of New York. During his time as president of Ohanaeze Ndigbo, he consistently called for the emergence of a Nigerian president of Southeast extraction in 2023. He was 80 years old.
It is a privilege for me to introduce the ambassador, His Excellency George Obiozor. You'll find very quickly he's one that makes you feel comfortable and like a close friend. It's been a delight accompanying him and becoming acquainted with him. He lived in the United States for a period of time during the late 60s and early 70s. He received his undergraduate degree from Puget Sound, so he knows the state of Washington. And then he obtained 3 degrees from Columbia University, a Master's of International Affairs, a Master's of Philosophy, and a PhD in Political Science. He then returned to his country, and he's had the luxury, as he's indicated, of keeping a foot in each camp, one as an academician and one as a politician. He has a very distinguished background. You will see that he is also a man with many titles. He is ambassador, His Excellency, he's professor, and as you see with the cap he's wearing, he's also a chief. So he's an important person in many respects. He's been very prolific in his academic career. He himself has personally written and published 7 books, co-authored 9 books, and, of course, many articles and speeches over the years. If you take his CV and print it out, it would go from one end of this room to the other end of the room. In his political career, of course, most recently, it was nearly 2.5 years ago, he was appointed as the ambassador of the United States for the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Prior to that, he was the ambassador to Israel and also as High Commissioner to Cyprus. Before that, he served as the Secretary General of the Nigerian National Institute of Foreign Affairs, and before that, the advisor to the President on international affairs. And that just takes you back into the 90s. If we went further, you'd be impressed with all the other credentials and experience he's had. But it's our pleasure, my pleasure, to introduce the ambassador and to have the ambassador speak to you this time. Thank you.
Well, may his soul rest in peace, Dr. Bati. That was in 2015 at Brigham Young University in the United States. I mean, you could hear back in 2015 his extensive CV. I mean, you recall the man just said, you know, if you have to go through his CV, you'll go through a room. And as I said earlier, you know, he's one of the people that have been calling for, you know, a president of Igbo extraction. And, you know, he's been out there campaigning for this cause. Again, may his soul rest in peace.
Well, it's very difficult to improve on that profile that has been given by that, you know, person shown in that video, the profile and the tribute. Many who knew Professor George Obiozor will remember him for his talents as a great networker, his humaneness, I mean, if he entered the room, he would light up the place. And his list of jokes, you know, and witticisms, you know, is endless. He was a very humorous man who, while discussing very serious intellectual issues, would still at the same time bring it down, you know, to the level of the ordinary man. As Emmanuel Lefeni pointed out, he was a friend of, you know, the Arise News, you know, establishment. Each time we called on him, he was always very willing to discuss on the channel. Another thing is that, look, he was one of those persons, one of those academics who gave the Nigerian Institute of International Affairs, you know, its very strong foundation. After Fabumi, you had Ojedokun, and then you have that whole generation from Bolaji Akinyemi, Gambari, Gabriel Olusoya, then George Obiozor as Director General of the NIA. And then the persons that came after, Joy Ogu, Bola Akinterenwa, Professor, and currently Professor Igosa Asage. They built on that foundation to make, you know, the Nigerian Institute of International Affairs a very strong policy think tank for the Nigerian government. Of course, as has been pointed out, he was not just distinguished in the field of political science and international affairs, in which he got his PhD. He was also a historian. And all of this you could see in the books that he wrote about Nigeria-U.S. relations, the uneasy friendship between both countries, and also his book on, you know, diplomatic ambivalence, you know, in the world today. You know, very thorough, very prolific, and of course he wrote also for the media, for the newspapers in his younger days. But above all, you know, many will remember him, you know, as a very good man who was not, you know, who made friends across board, even if in his later days he became the President General of the Ohanaeze Ndigbo. About 2 days ago, there were rumors that he had died, but that was denied. Then eventually yesterday, the governor of Imo State, Hope Uzodinma, issued that statement in which, you know, he informed the world that he had passed on. But the excuse that was given was that nobody else wanted to announce until the family had taken a decision that the, you know, world should be informed. His death is a major loss, of course, to the people of Awomama, where he hails from in Imo State, to Imo State, his state, to Nigeria, and to the intellectual academic community, to, you know, where he distinguished himself, and more importantly, to the diplomatic community in Nigeria, where he was one of the, you know, more robust members of that special class. And in many ways, they don't make them like that anymore. But I don't want to, this is not an occasion to criticize our foreign policy establishment or our diplomats.
All right. Again, may his soul rest in peace. We'll take another story. As the rift in the main opposition People's Democratic Party gets wider amid reports that members of the G5 governors, led by the Rivers State Governor, Nyesom Wike, have met with the presidential candidate of the All Progressives Congress, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, in London, the People's Democratic Party on Wednesday announced that they are considering expelling the aggrieved governors if they were to go ahead to announce their support for any presidential candidate other than Atiku Abubakar. According to reports, another option being considered by the leadership of the PDP is the dissolution of the party's structures in the respective states of the G5 governors, which will in turn affect the political ambition of some members of the group. The governors were said to have traveled to the United Kingdom for a strategic meeting with the APC standard-bearer, who is reported to have lobbied for the endorsement of the 5 governors during the marathon meeting, which was held in London on Tuesday. Ayo.
All right, so still yesterday we had quite a robust conversation on the PDP crisis. We talked about the fact that the G5 governors, led by Governor Nyesom Wike of Rivers State, were on their way to, had gone to London for a meeting, even elaborated on the choice of London as a destination. But away from that, now an update in terms of the response by the PDP, which is in line with what we had talked about. That if eventually the G5 governors go ahead to endorse a candidate of another party, it is tantamount to anti-party activities, which the PDP have now come out to say that all they are waiting for is for them to come out with that stance so that they can begin to, take action. And the punitive measures for that they talk about the PDP being a structured organization built on the Constitution and processes and procedures, and this will be followed if the G5 governors do endorse. So, they're going to sanction them. They didn't describe what the sanctions would be. They didn't talk about whether they'd be suspended, expelled from the party. They did elaborate that these governors have benefited quite immensely from the PDP structure, and that it is, at this critical point, quite unfortunate that they're taking this stance. It's still important to note that the G5 governors have not yet come out to categorically say that they'll be going with candidate A, B, or C against their own, candidates, even though they have said in many ways that they would not be, since they haven't come to an agreement with the party leaders, they wouldn't be supporting their party's presidential candidate, who is Waziri Atiku Abubakar. Tinubu is, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu is lobbying. They've had leaning towards Peter Obi, Obasanjo's candidate. They said in January they will let us know who their candidates are. So again, this is part of the saga that is the emergence of the G5's anointed candidate. Yeah. Boiling down again to wrap up, my view is this. At the end of the day, despite or irrespective of who the G5 governors decide to nominate and endorse, the fate of the Nigerian presidency, or who will eventually emerge as president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, lies in the hands of Nigerians. So please let us not be distracted by this to think that only a few people are responsible for who emerges as president. Please ensure that every single Nigerian, as many as possible, are part of the electoral process. You are the most important part of governance, very important.
Yeah, so Rufai, according to this day, the sources that we have, they have threatened dissolution. They've also threatened, to expel these governors if they go ahead with this anti-party activity, as it may be. We were talking about maybe they might meet with Peter Obi, and now we are hearing Tinubu, but also the G5 have not come out to say that they have met with anyone. As far as we know, I've heard that they've gone on holiday. Rufai.
At first, I think we've talked ad nauseum as regards going to London. Our governors should please promote local tourism. There's Yankari Game Reserve. Yes. There's Obudu Cattle Ranch. If we hear that governors are going to those places, more tourism money will come there. But like we say in Warri, this activity of the G5 governors, it has what I call K-leg and Kobo-leg. Kobo-leg is actually bow-leg. It's the Warri term, local pidgin slang for bow-leg. K-leg. You know why? In all of this, I know they would have considered the plight of a certain Mr. Seyi Makinde, which is in a precarious situation because All the other governors have done 2 terms. It is only Sheyi Makinde that has done 1 term. And he's going up against a very experienced politician, Teslim Folarin, in Oyo. Whatever deal they make with Mr. Tinubu, hope he knows that it's going to be difficult for him. Because Teslim Folarin, having had a run at the governorship so many times, being a senator, all right, he's a tested politician in Oyo State. So if they make a deal with Tinubu, give him that assurance? I doubt. Secondly, hope they know that if they don't support their own party candidates, that's why I say get K-leg and Kobo-leg, that the party is going to pull out the structure from them. And once they pull out the structure from them, it's going to be destructive. Because you are only as good as your structure. So people had better tell them this and not deceive them. You saw what happened to Obaseki. He was lucky because he had time. When the APC pulled down the structure, you saw he had to shop for party. If they do that to a certain Mr. Sheyi Makinde, in a worst case scenario, couple of months to the elections, what party doesn't want to go to? Accord is taking, everybody is taking. I'm sure he's making his deals already because I should think he will have put all of this in perspective. Then if they finally make the deal, will anything they do have bearing on how Nigerians will vote? I doubt. Oji, the elections and the campaigns are far gone. If the G5 wanted to do anything, they should have done it long ago. I doubt. You know why? Most of the candidates have gone to Katsina. Most of the candidates have campaigned in the heartland. They've come to Lagos, they've campaigned. Nigerians, as we speak, are already making up their mind. It's not what the G5 will tell them that will change anything. So it's a dire strait for them, and that's why they should think about it very well. But, you know, politicians, they might have a better game up their cards without knowing. So we give it to them. They might have a joker. But in all of this should tell you something. That the APC and PDP will abuse themselves tomorrow. But you can see them going to make deals at the back at your own expense. So Nigerians, please shine your eye.
I always say that.
Be wise.
Shine your eye.
So they are not enemies.
All right, Dr. But really quickly, as we
Well,
wrap
very
up the
quickly,
show.
it's not only Sheyi Makinde that is vulnerable. Sheyi Makinde is seeking a second term. The only person not seeking any elective position out of the G5 governors is Governor Nyesom Wike. The others want to go to the Senate. So they too may be vulnerable. Now, PDP spokespersons from Timothy Osadolo, Diola Feso, and others have said Section 58, subsection 1 of the PDP Constitution says you cannot expose the party to ridicule. But can the PDP afford to expel them or suspend them before the election? Because they are followers. Those followers may not really be aligning with them. Yeah. So that's also another problem there. The third problem is that they should remember what happened in the 2007 election, when governors of the AD, with the exception of Bola Tinubu at the time, supported President Olusegun Obasanjo's bid for a second term. The wrong messaging worked against them. So how do you tell the electorate, don't vote Atiku Abubakar, but in other elections, vote for this particular political party? It could be problematic, as history has shown us.
Well,
thank you very much, Ojineka.
Thank you all again for your great analysis on what's trending today. Well, that's all I have for you on what's trending today. I'll see you all tomorrow.
And that's all. The political terrain in Nigeria has been an interesting one this year. From new bills being signed into law to the preparations ahead of the 2023 general elections, we bring you this special report with key highlights of the political season in 2022. And that's how we wrap up this edition of The Morning Show. Rotus Odiri will be here next after this special report to take you through Global Business Report. Stay with us. It's still the Arise News Channel.
Nigerians are eagerly looking forward to the next general election, especially after a year of fundamental electoral reforms was signed into law, of course, to guarantee free, fair, credible, as well as transparent elections, especially with the transmission electronically and the use of technology. After a couple of years of working on the new electoral bill and its earlier rejection by the executive due to a lot of controversies and alleged selfish insertions by the federal lawmakers, the National Assembly later accommodated all the observations and passed the document for transmission to President Muhammadu Buhari, who then signed it into law in late February after months of withholding assent.
There are salient and praiseworthy provisions that could positively revolutionize elections in Nigeria through the introduction of new technological innovations.
The 2022 Electoral Act, which repeals the old 2010 Electoral Act, has introduced several innovations to regulate the conduct of federal, state, and area council elections in Nigeria. The new Electoral Act also allows for the heavy deployment of new technologies in the nation's electoral process using the Bimodal Voters Authentication System, or BVAS, an all-in-one technology for the accreditation of voters and electronic transmission of election results. Section 47, subsection 2 of the Electoral Act makes it mandatory that to vote, the presiding officer shall use a BVAS smart card reader or any other technology device that may be prescribed by the Independent National Electoral Commission for the accreditation of voters to verify, confirm, or authenticate the particulars of the intending voter in the manner prescribed by INEC. The use of BVAS is mandatory and is not an option. There's also the results viewing portal, IREV, approved for voters to monitor in real time the results from polling units across the nation on election day. By this, INEC is empowered to transmit polling unit level results in real time. Unlike the BVAS, the transmission is also mandatory as provided in Section 64, subsection 4 of the 2022 Electoral Act. Under the new Act, the use of electronic devices such as BVAS machines, smart card readers, electronic voting machines, and other technological devices are allowed in the accreditation process for voters and in the general conduct of elections. The Electoral Act also makes provision for a central electronic voter database, which provides that INEC shall keep the register of voters at its national headquarters and other locations, provided that the register shall be kept in electronic format in its central database, in addition to being kept in manual or hard copy formats. Under the former Act, this register was kept in manual or hard copy format only. INEC has since gone ahead to provide a credible voter register for the 2023 general election, which now stands at 93.5 million voters.
We want to compile all the amendments together. You remember we have 2010 as amended, 2015 as amended. So we want to put all the amendments in one form so that even the judges will have one document to work with.
We have now laws and guidelines that are there. In the event you are able to be to one of the offenders, the rules is there, you'll be punished for that purpose. While like issue of card snatching or snatching of ballot boxes, alteration of result, announcing elections by directs, and any other thing, even using the security agents, even the INEC officials too, if they are found wanting, they will be the law will take care of itself on them.
You have observed election here in Nigeria, especially I want to look at this year 2022 with the officers in elections in Ekiti and Osun State. What would you say are some of the challenges or even the knocks you want to give to INEC and the thumbs up as well?
I will start from Ekiti and Osun election, where we saw practically the 2022 Electoral Act as amended that President Buhari signed, where it was enforced. And it was really exciting and it gave hope to democracy. where we saw deployment of beavers and integration of technology. That's the exciting part, where votes are actually counting. But the downside is now politicians know votes are counting, so they're now using our election as a transaction, and this is where vote buying and vote selling comes into play. I also think that law enforcement agency needs to do much more. Yes, there's that debate and argument around electoral offences commission, and for me, I don't I don't subscribe to it, because we have Nigerian Police, who is the apex law enforcement agency. Just give them the necessary resources, manpower and financial resources, and expose them to state-of-the-art training and equipment.
Electoral experts and stakeholders say this provision is laudable, as it will provide transparency and effectiveness in the Commission's record keeping and in tracking the number of registered voters who will be voting in the upcoming elections, thereby curbing illegal voting by non-registered voters. INEC says it is fully ready to deploy the digital tools for the 2023 general election to avoid human errors. INEC has since deployed these new technologies as stipulated by the electoral laws into action, with the beavers and others recently used in some off-season elections in 2022, especially the governorship elections in Anambra, Ekiti, and Osun states.
The role of money and how this would affect the integrity of our election. Because sadly, these politicians are making it seem like it's going to be transactional. Yes, we have a new CBN policy, even if they've now sort of reviewed it and made a provision that one can withdraw 500,000 per week. Be as it may, is this going to be applicable to everyone or just a few?
The combination of beavers and IREF portal have come to stay as a means of voter education and transmission of election results. Reports of clashes among parties and their supporters in some states of the country during the ongoing electioneering campaign is worrisome. So too is the reported denial of access to public facilities for parties and candidates in some states of the Federation. Parties, candidates and their supporters should not, by acts of commission or omission, further complicate the prevailing security situation in the country.
The commission, we don't know what the politicians are seeing. We don't know why they are buying up people's PVCs. The only thing they can use the PVCs to do is to engage in what we call voter suppression. In other words, to make sure that the owners of those PVCs do not vote and do not vote at all. But if they think that they can buy up PVCs, hand over to other people, and those people will come to the polling unit on election day and vote, that is next to impossibility. The BVAS has the capacity to read fingerprints and read facials, and it is only the person who is duly and validly and properly registered that can vote during any election.
And the same technology with what was deployed in Kenya for the presidential election. So I'm really confident in the deployment of BVAS, but most importantly, the role of BVAS in accrediting, electorate. Because see, politicians, you can go ahead and buy as many PVCs that you want, but with BVAS, you can't use it.
Quite notably is that all three elections had the three top political parties in Nigeria emerging victorious. The All Progressives Grand Alliance, APGA, retained its hold on Anambra State, with former CBN Governor Professor Charles Soludo declared the winner. In Ekiti State, the former secretary to the Ekiti State government and candidate of the All Progressives Congress, the APC, declared the winner. And in Osun State, Senator Ademola Adeleke of the People's Democratic Party emerging victorious against the incumbent governor Adegboyega Oyetola of the APC, thereby flipping Osun State back to the PDP. Observers are optimistic that with this feat, Nigeria's electoral body INEC has shown its readiness to conduct the 2023 polls. And despite these successes, INEC has recently warned that next year's general election could be jeopardized if the state of insecurity and attacks on its offices continue nationwide, as its facilities have been attacked 50 times between 2019 and 2022. INEC says the endless attacks on its offices and facilities in some states poses the greatest threat to the conduct of next year's election. Regrettably, each of the incidents comes with a huge destruction, ranging from electoral materials like voters' cubicle, ballot boxes, to official cars, office furniture, and a countless number of uncollected permanent voters' cards. From Ogun State, where thousands of uncollected PVCs were consumed in the inferno, to Osun State, where movable and immovable facilities were reduced to rubbles, to several other states like Imo, Ebonyi, Enugu, and Abia in the southeast geopolitical zone, where the spate of attacks have heightened. The Commission has continued to lament in pains and agony over the helpless situation confronting it. It has sought support from the Office of the National Security Advisor on how to ensure that both the military and police are deployed to safeguard INEC facilities.
The state of insecurity is appalling, and if we are unable to guarantee the safety of lives and property, then INEC cannot actually do her job. Even the chairman of INEC has said that, security agencies needs to guarantee that, his staff and the sensitive materials are secured and they can travel free without any hitches. What becomes of our sensitive material as we go into this election? Because we don't want anything to question the integrity of the process and the outcome, because these are what triggers violence.
We are really, really worried at the level of attacks and the intensity of some of these attacks. But with the election approaching, if these attacks continue, it may pose a grave danger to electoral business. For the attacks that have already taken place, that we have the capacity to recover. But that if these attacks continue up to the critical period of the electoral process, that it may be very difficult for the Commission to recover, and it will pose a great danger to electoral business and the conduct of the 2023 general election. It is in the interest of all Nigerians, in the interest of our democracy, and also in the interest of the electoral process to have these elections take place on schedule. But if the attacks continue, especially in some of our local government areas, it may be difficult to hold elections in those local governments.
Esther, you're late again. Esther?
She's a wandering light in the darkness. She's beautiful. Oh, she's a superstar.
Morning, Esther.
She never let her mama down. She's beautiful. She know the fear. She know they ever got a hand for them.
No phones at the table, please.
Oh.
Esther. I love you too.
Got everything? Don't forget I'll pick you at 4.
Airtel, the smartphone network.
Patricia, crypto made easy.
Getting together for the first time in years was a little bit awkward. Grandpa still tried to entertain us. Mom was always stealing the spotlight from the kids. It wasn't until Grandma cracked a joke
That's my favorite prayer.
that we got back into our groove. In this festive, DSTV is making family time even better with an upgrade.
Stay connected to DSTV and we'll upgrade you to the next package for free.
With the new electoral law also came new challenges. By virtue of Section 84, subsection 12 of the Electoral Act 2022, anyone holding a political office must vacate the position before he or she can be eligible to participate in a primary election, convention, or congress of political parties, either as a candidate or as a delegate. This provision only covers political appointees and does not extend to elected political office holders or public officers employed to the public service. Also, the period when they should relinquish the position seems to be immaterial. This led to some members of the federal cabinet resigning their positions. Prominent amongst them are the Minister of Niger Delta Affairs, Godswill Akpabio, Minister of Transportation, Rotimi Amechi, Minister of Science and Technology and Innovation, Ogbonnaya Onu, State Minister for Mines and Steels Development, Uche Oga, and State Minister for Education, Chukwuemeka Nwadruba. Others, including the Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice, Abubakar Malami, Women Affairs Minister, Pauline Talen, Chris Ngige, Minister of Labour and Employment, Petroleum Resources Minister for State, Timipire Silva, eventually rescinded their decision to quit the Federal Executive Council and were reinstated. In what appears to be a major oversight in the new legislation, elected party leaders such as the President, National Assembly members, and governors were shut out from voting during party primaries. The Senate attempted to amend the provisions in Section 84, subsection 8 of the Electoral Act 2022 for statutory delegates, that is, all elected to participate and vote in conventions, congresses, and meetings of political parties. But that failed as President Buhari didn't sign the new amendment at the expiration of the deadline. Major political parties had to hold their conventions to pick candidates for the next year's presidential elections before the 29th of May 2022, which was the deadline stipulated by the timetable of the Independent National Electoral Commission, with only the statutory delegates voting in primaries alongside ad hoc delegates. As such, this is the first time since Nigeria's return to democracy in 1999 that only a handful of party members would have voting rights at the primaries of the parties. Political parties adjusted and party primaries were held all across the country. In the end, 18 presidential candidates emerged from which Nigerians are to elect one amongst them to govern the country next year. They are Prince Malik Ado Ibrahim, Young Progressive Party; Rabiu Musa Kwankwaso, New Nigerian People's Party; Omoyele Sowore, African Action Congress; Peter Obi, Labour Party; Kola Abiola, People's Redemption Party; Bola Ahmed Tinubu, All Progressives Congress; Atiku Abubakar, People's Democratic Party; Hamza Al-Mustafa, Action Alliance; Professor Christopher Imomolen, Accord Party; Dumebi Kachuku, African Democratic Congress; Peter Umeadi, All Progressives Grand Alliance; Okudili Anyajike, National Rescue Movement; Sani Yusuf Yagwaji, Action Democratic Party; Nandi Osita, All People's Party; Adenuga Oluwafemi, Boots Party; Adebayo Adewale, Social Democratic Party; Dan Iwanyawu, Zenith Labour Party; and the only female candidate, Ojei Chichi, of the Allied People's Movement. Post-party primary controversies also emerged after the announcement of the elected presidential candidates. Prominent amongst them is that between the runner-up in the main opposition's People's Democratic Party and Governor of Rivers State, Nyesom Wike, who alongside 4 other governors from the party have been resolute in their demand for the resignation of the PDP National Chairman Iyorchia Ayu before they can support the party's presidential candidate Atiku Abubakar.
We have had our primaries, and the president candidate have emerged. But before a president candidate emerged, there was the issue of where would the chairmanship go to? Because in our party, the chairman comes from either the south, and the president candidate comes from north, or the president candidate comes from the south, and the chairman will go to the north. The intention of the founding fathers was that to allow for inclusivity, for everybody to participate in the hierarchy of decision-making of the party.
It's nothing new in politics, and that some people get angry, when things don't go their way and so on and so forth. So we will overcome that. I have every belief that we are going to do that. There is nothing like a Wike come or Atiku come. There is one PDP family.
Is there any plan at all to meet with Wike one-on-one for some kind of reconciliation?
Why not? I'm open to that.
In the All Progressives Congress, litigations from members of the party, especially the former Minister of State for Education, Chukwuemeka Nwadruba, who on the eve of the presidential primaries had stepped down from the contest, lingered until the courts threw it out. He had alleged that the party primaries that produced Tinubu as the APC's presidential candidate, as well as that of the PDP's Atiku Abubakar, were tainted by corruption and widespread vote buying, adding that the majority of the delegates were bought over with dollars. Hence, his call for the disqualification of both candidates. But a federal high court in Abuja dismissed the suit. The APC also suffered a huge dose of defections by some party stalwarts following the same fate tickets or Muslim ticket decision by the party's candidate Bola Ahmed Tinubu after he settled for Kasim Shettima as his running mate. Top leaders like the former secretary to the government of the Federation, Babachir Lawal, and former Speaker of the House of Representatives, Yakubu Dogara, amongst others, have since left the party, even as top officials of the President Muhammadu Buhari administration, including the Vice President, Yemi Osinbajo, have been missing in major campaign stops, with majority of those who contested against Tinubu also less visible at the campaigns.
What can be a better example of religion in politics than those demonstrated by these governors of APC? Clearly, there is an agenda to politically, religiously, and economically suppress and oppress the Northern Christians. But we are up to the task. We will protect ourselves. We will defend ourselves. And we will defend our interests. The PVC and our prayers will be our weapons of choice, and we will massively deploy them in 2023.
Once we are one, we can bring Nigeria to the clay and a high heel of Africa. I am just determined with this man.
My fundamental disagreement with Asiwaju since 2007 was on the issue of Muslim ticket. That was my fundamental disagreement and departure politically from Asiwaju. Remember, I came out of PDP on the issue of zoning, and together with Asiwaju, we formed ACN, and I was given a ticket in Lagos, and he insisted to be my running mate. And I said, no, I'm not going to have a Muslim ticket. And because of that, he switched his support to the late Umaru Yar'Adua. It is also a fact that when Buhari emerged in 2015 in Lagos, I opposed a Muslim ticket. I opposed it. And my opposition actually reinforced the decision of President Buhari to pick, a Christian running mate. So I have all along opposed that. I don't believe in that. I don't believe it's right for a country, like Nigeria, a multi-ethnic, multi-religious country. There should be balancing of, interests, whether religious or otherwise.
The president of the Ninth Senate, Ahmed Lawal, who also sought to be the candidate of the All Progressives Congress, lost his re-election bid to return to the Senate with an appeals court affirming Bashir Manchina as the APC candidate for Yobe North Senatorial District for next election. Also, Peter Obi, who had earlier sought the ticket of the People's Democratic Party, defected to the Labour Party, where he emerged as the presidential candidate, but not without an outcry by some presidential aspirants in the party, who cried out that they were bullied to step down for him to emerge as a consensus candidate, despite their insistence that there should be a primary election. The Labour Party has since been faced with different controversies, ranging from members of the party's National Working Committee feeling edged out of the party's Presidential Campaign Council, with daggers drawn by the Ogun State chapter of the Labour Party against the National Chairman, Julius Abure, and the Director General of the Campaign Council, Doyin Okukwe. Also, Okukwe's resignation following his conviction over money laundering charges by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, the EFCC, and sentencing by a federal high court all dogged the party.
I don't want to sound a note of warning because I know now he in his usual, a boisterous manner, he might be thinking this is just a shy play. It is not a shy play. Dr. Doyin Okukwe, I want to make it categorically clear to you that you are still a member of this party, and every available means, every lawful available means we will use against you with your cohort. You can never come back to this party. We will not sit down with you because you have disobeyed our constitution.
I'm not saying I'm not going to spend money for campaign. I'm not going to say I'm not going to buy lunch for people and everything, but I've never, knowingly, in all my talks with Kwankwaso and anything, offered any money. The people who are funding me, I'm happy that I've actually set up a team to oversee all donations and support. Not because I'm defending comment by my brother. My brother is the brother. I remain my brother. We're very close. I remain prayerful for him. For other things which I didn't succeed, God has given him opportunity to do it and succeed. For me, yes. So if there's anything pending, governance, you don't finish. People are still in government in America. So you stop where you stop, other people will continue from there.
In the African Democratic Congress, the ADC, the presidential candidate Dumebi Kachuku was expelled by the Ralph Nwosu-led National Working Committee of the party 3 months after his emergence. The decision has since been challenged and a court ruling in favor of the candidate has been obtained.
It reaffirmed, first of all, my faith in the judiciary. Secondly, for our supporters who were not clear about the role of INEC in all of this and what was happening and didn't want to waste their efforts in backing the wrong horse, they now realize that it makes sense to stay on track and focus on what's right. It's a real moral boost, I would say that.
With the next general elections barely 2 months away, political observers say the year 2022 was quite eventful in the political scene, but Nigerians are optimistic about the next general elections, especially the fact that they have a chance to vote in the next leader who they say must be willing, able, and capable to tackle the myriads of challenges currently bedeviling the nation. I'm Maka Ude Walker, Arise News.
Imagine
imagine your wallet can be everything. Well, almost everything your bank is to you. That's exactly what First Money Wallet is. First Money Wallet from First Bank is another swift and seamless way to bank from your mobile phone. It doesn't matter if you have a First Bank account or not, nor the mobile network you use. Everyone can open a First Money Wallet. And
This is Arise News. We interrupt this program for a live event.
Let's appreciate him. It is not easy to... You're welcome, sir.
All right, we are live in Kogi State, where Nigeria's President Muhammadu Buhari is set to inaugurate legacy projects of the Governor Yahaya Bello-led administration across the state.
الذي ما أولد مثله في الوجود ولم يولد مثله فيه قط اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد الفاتح لما أغلق والخاتم لما سبق ناصر الحق بالحق والهادي إلى صراطك المستقيم وعلى آله حق قدره وامتداره العظيم وبعد Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. On behalf of the Ohinoi of Ibraland, I, the Ohi of Okenwe, welcome the Excellency Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, Federal Republic of Nigeria, President Muhammadu Buhari, to Kogi Central. It is a great to see so many enthusiastic men and women here celebrating the commissioning of outstanding projects across edges of Kogi State and starting from Kogi Central. All Ibratao Kingdom. It has been a long time dream of our forefather that someday Kogi State will be projected to the world, and today such dream is manifesting through our son, our able son, the leader of New Direction, Governor Yahaya Ado. I believe everyone here is happy today based on what is going on presently. The traditional rulers are pleased to host the father of the nation called Nigeria and his leads and particularly Ibratao Kingdom. Mr. President, sir, there is an adage in my language which say, meaning, the child song from the hunter to the dog during hunting will make the dog more willing. We, the entire Kogi, we really appreciate all the helping hands and support the Mr. President have been giving to our able